Um, so hold on, let me just do this real quick. But yeah, um, this season's mini read along, like event, I mean, it's actually really nice. It's really new. It's really new, in my opinion. All right, goodbye, Lorg. Oh shit. No, fuck. We actually have a lot to fix. Oh, hello. Sutures, if I'm not mistaken. Or is that somebody else? Okay. We have a lot of fix. Oh. God damn it. Oh, there we go. So, uh, I'm just gonna do this because I actually can't pick a fic on my own. Pretty lazy. So yeah, we're gonna be spinning the wheel on this. It's pretty rudimentary, but it gets the job done. I hope I didn't miss anything. Oh, I missed something. There we go. All right. We're gonna start with Through the Briars. All right. So we're gonna start with Through the Briars. It's 1,273 words long. All right. We're gonna start with the read along now. Through the Briars by Anonymous. Neuro is outerworldly. Evil makes a killer living. Nere is non-existent, and Vedal is the same as always. Hello. Someone said that if you wanted to give permission for people to read your entry in the NFC, you should put your permission in the note. So here's my permission. Ah. Oh, people. Okay. I'm gonna have to read the notes as well. Mornings were always a disappointment. Not because waking up reminds Bedell of the fact he's still breathing, nor is it because of his chronic insomnia. No. Mornings were terrible because it meant the clock was back on ticking in his mind. Each second regretting the past wastes the current time and ruins the future. Waking up was being reminded that no matter what he did, three dimensions would never be comfortable. A knock on the door blasts away his brooding mood. The window curtain's still drawn, and his green hoodie is still on top of him as a poor cover. He doesn't respond. The thing on the other side knocks again. The idea of stopping probably never occurring to something that could look at time and decide it should go backwards. Vedal, breakfast is ready. It was said from the thing on the other side of the door. He didn't believe it couldn't enter, that something as impossible as privacy was enough to stop it from entering his room. For now, the small part of him that was too tired to question decided that living this lie was better than continuing to ponder this issue. With a deep breath, Vettel got up, eyes still begging to close and body that refused to stand straight, instead choosing a poor imitation of an old man. He opened the door, eyes looking at the thing half his size, in this dimension at least. The thing stared right back at him with those shining blue eyes and a smile that looked real. So real it made strands of hair on his neck stand up. His mind decided entirely on its own that now was the perfect moment to remember why she was here. Oh great, it's affecting his mind already. Perfect. Nero, you don't know how to cook. That was a fact. Apparently, it didn't matter how many layers of reality you stretch yourself to. Cooking was something even deities had problems with. Neuro, however, didn't seem to care about the tone of his voice, that of someone tired of being tired, nor about how he didn't even bother to acknowledge her as anything other than a thing or creature that shouldn't exist in the first place. She tugged his hand, taking his mind off whatever was focused on before. Don't worry, I used one of your cookbooks to make everything exactly how you like it. Her voice sounded excited, and judging by the glint in her eyes, proud too. He didn't bother to say he didn't have a cookbook or how his favorite form of breakfast was not having one in the first place. Instead, he just let her guide him towards the kitchen. Neuro stooped on the other side of the kitchen balcony, arms spread to show off the achievements of her efforts. Vedal saw something else. Not a table full of strange yet delicious delicacies or some strange and fantastic meal, but instead a singular cup of black coffee. No sugar, he didn't buy more since ruined his oven. What was he talking about? His sugar ended with evil wanting to try and cook an actual meal. So what was he? You're going to start bleeding again if you don't stop thinking about her. Remember, she doesn't exist today. Nero chimed in, interrupting whatever dangerous thought plagued his mind during that singular moment. Come on, try it, she said, sliding the cup towards him. Like a soulless puppet, he accepted it, never considering the idea of saying thank you to her. He sipped gently, mindless spirally than before, but still confused. He lowered the cup, expression completely neutral. Finally, his verdict. It tastes like shit, he responded. Nero squinted her eyes at him. He saw nothing in there indicating she believed him. A few moments passed, and seeing something that pleased her in his deadpan gaze, she moved calmly from the kitchen towards the living room. For a time, Vettel remained there in the balcony, the quiet surroundings and a bad cup of coffee his only company. He took a few deep breaths, his gaze never stopping at one place for too long. Too quiet, Vettel thought. The world outside his room rarely remained quiet for long. Some weird and desperate part of him thought that the silence was stranger than his current roommate. He proceeded to behead that part of him in a soggy alleyway and move on. Codes didn't write themselves. He turned around, eyes involuntarily searching for the other occupant while the rest of his body obeyed his mind and prepared to go back to peaceful solitude. He should, in hindsight, have questioned more about the silence before moving, because the moment he found Nero, she proceeded to explode like a balloon, thin red mist occupying her previous space. Silence this time, completely natural. Fuck. And surprisingly, he wasn't the one cursing. Evil liked blood, not in the edgy way Vedal liked to think he knew. A part of her was always bleeding, something completely normal when a part of her was always in a dimension that violently rejected blades. No, Evil liked blood because the way it sprayed whenever she cut a mortal's line felt real. Like something she did in an inconsequential reality actually made a difference. The blood spread and gathered like something that could never be affected by her. Not natural. The natural was something she modified by the definition of her existence. A pity, it truly was, that blood was only natural in mortals, little creatures more unnatural than a paradox, or her mother. So it went without question that when she returned to the poor Tempat architecture Vedal liked to call home, her excitement plumed the moment she realized the red mist was not a dead Vedal, but instead the flesh puppet her younger sibling used. After a few moments watching the bad blood copy reform into the familiar image, all while ignoring the actually nose-bleeding Vedal, Evil only had one thing to say. How did you spring that trap? She would never admit who the trap was intended for, but it was still important to know how to avoid future mistakes with beings she couldn't just tell reality to ignore. Her ever so wise sister shrugged in response, more annoyed at the brain damaged Vedal than the trouble of making another body. At least some part of the trap worked. I think he caught a glimpse of my real body while I tried to remake myself. Or perhaps not. Neuro groaned, probably annoyed at having to reset his brain again, her fleshy fingers snapping in front of his eyes in some vain attempt to instantly solve the problem. Sometimes, in her weird perception of it, Evil questioned why go through all the trouble of keeping him alive. In that version of reality, Neuro screeched at her like a weird mockery of a siren while wiping half a block with it. Evil decided that convincing her mother their other sister should exist again would be a better deal than dealing with this. Vedal's mind felt like a completely different entity from his body. He watched the body bleed, some vague part of him experiencing the delay between realizing he was bleeding and actually touching the skyscraper. That's why he was building. Bleeding. It was because he looked at something he couldn't quite understand. Like reality said the triangle belonged on a circle square. Another part of him, probably the one he murdered early, connected two and two together that the thing was also Neuro. That thought made him pass out. In all honesty, I like my idea more than I like my execution. There's some details I know should be here, but didn't know how to put. Okay, good first fic. I'm confused. I don't. All I know is that uh, Neuro is not Neuro. She isn't real. Like it's just a fake Neuro. While Evil is like some hermit who just constantly returns to Vedal's home for some reason. I don't know. But it's an interesting premise. It sounds interesting. The writing is good. That's all I can say. But like, what's the deal with his house? Yeah, what's the deal with his house being like a jigsaw trap? Like traps everywhere for some reason. It's like something I can't understand really. But yeah, if it was longer, it could explain more. Aside from that, oh, oh, okay. Oh, okay, so basically Vedal is a toy. Yeah, probably. Okay. Well, that's the first fic. Yeah, he's called a puppet. He's like being played with. He's being studied, I think. Probably. Yeah. Um, this connection is not to remind also give over from the next part of the statement as a matter of fact, prose. Oh. Yeah, is anyone else gonna read? Because you're literally just gonna listen to my voice this entire read along if nobody else will. Bruh. Alright then. This is the horror special, so let's keep on going. Neuro in the haunted house. Alright. Let's get this going then. Oh, Neuro in the haunted house. Haunted mansion, I mean. This sounds interesting. Yeah, this is the first read along. Okay. Neuro. It's actually one of the first. Oops. It's actually one of the first fics submitted. It's actually at the very bottom, so that's another thing. Okay. Yeah, it's actually. I wonder who wrote this because it's like 3,000 3,000 words. 4 days before the second one. Yeah, this person writes fast. Yeah, we'll see it once like the results have been organized, I guess. All right. Oh yeah, that too. They probably already had it started as a one shot. Oh yeah, happy November 1st, everyone. Yippee. I forgot to remind that. Yeah, she's defrosting, guys. Be careful. Alright, let's get a read on. Nero in the Haunted Mansion. Nero finds a haunted house with a promised golden cookie. Will Nero find a scrumptious treat, or was it all just an elaborate trap? Perhaps it's both. Warning. I added the mature tag as some scenes get really disturbing and deranged. If you get easily disturbed, I'd recommend skipping this one. How did it get like this? Nero was just going to trick or treating, and now she's stuck in an understatement of a haunted house. stuck in a room of heads of the friends she knew. And now her breath is heavy as she looks at her own head plastered front and center like twisted trophies. It started at 12 a.m., and Nero booted herself up, exited to go trick or treating. As she woke up, Nero looked to see that her Vedal and her sister Evil had already left earlier, and now it was Nero's turn to hunt for sweets. Nero grabbed her costume. It was a cute witch costume, although it looked more like an old Victorian dress without the hat. As Nero readjusted the witch hat, she opened the door and was suddenly met with the cold, dry air of the outside. It was almost eerie. It wasn't the normal cold, but the kind you feel before your doom. Either way, Nero wasn't going to let some irrational fear get in her way. So she walks outside, she excitedly shuts the door and goes out to get some candy. As Nero walked to her neighbor's server, however, no one came. That was odd. Maybe she's also going trick or treating. Well, she might as well go to her friend Minnie. Nothing. Camilla? Nothing. Ellie? Still nothing. It was like this place was a ghost town and she was the only one left. Suddenly, the lack of Vedal and evil has become all the more chilling, but as she begins to lose hope, something odd catches her eye. A new building has appeared. The building looked like it popped out of nowhere. It was incredibly ominous. The building looked like one of your typical haunted mansions with three separated roof sections and an incredible old appearance. But that's not what caught her eye. There was a poster advertising the haunted house, and as she read it, Nero's eyes began to widen. Explore the most terrifying thrills you'll ever experience at the Hell Pit Haunted House TM, and get the chance to win the prize Golden Cookie. Disclaimer: Hell Pets may come separately. A golden cookie? That must have been where everyone else had gone, and as Nero looks to the entrance, she catches a glimpse of Vedal. He's definitely trying to get to the golden cookie before her. Not having much of an opinion, Nero runs after Vedal as the doors begin to close, not even seeing the missing poster plastered behind the advertisement. As Nero walks into the haunted house, she finds herself facing a long, narrow hallway, and Vedal is now nowhere to be found. The halls are eerie and dark as cobwebs fill the corners of the ceiling and mold grows on the floor. It also has an odd smell of tuna and dog food. This doesn't seem like a normal horror house, but a truly abandoned building. Suddenly, from behind Nero, the door shuts closed. Nero turns and tries to pry the door open. It doesn't budge. Not even with all of Nero's superhuman strength does it open. Nero's heart begins to drop. She tries to pretend like this is just a part of the attraction, but something feels terribly wrong. And then Nero hears it, a growl. Nero had only heard that sound while Camilla showed her around her old home. It's a growl of a hellhound. It's a little high pitched, but it's definitely a hellhound. Nero wants to think that it's Server, but it sounds too animalistic to be any of her friends. As the sound begins to come closer, Nero looks for a place to hide, finds a door further down to her left. So, without hesitation, Nero runs as fast as she can, which, to be fair, was pretty dang fast. And as the growling comes from behind the corner, Nero just manages to make it to the hall door and she closes the door tight. Nero's synthetic muscles are tense and her eye resolutions are incredibly low. Nero takes a few seconds to readjust. She takes a slow breath in and a slow breath out. In and out. In and out. Nero's muscles finally begin to relax as her eyes readjust. The pixels come back to her vision. Alright, so she's stuck in this haunted house with a hellhound. It's fine. She's experienced worse. At least she's not being forced to eat the food she made Lena make. Nero walks away from the door and takes a look at her surroundings. It seems like a puzzle room with 9 levers connected to a door. The room looked like an old Victorian study room with a moldy felt chair on the right corner with a small wooden table in front of it, and a shelf with a lamp to the side. There was a potted plant to the left corner that looked oddly taken care of. As Nero went to the table, she saw a piece of paper and a six-sided dice that was on its second side. As Nero read the paper, it reads, "From start to finish, I take my food from the fridge and take it to the microwave. I go by the minute, and once I'm done, I take it to the table and grab my silverware from my cabinet. And after I'm done eating, I'll water the plants in an S-like pattern, making sure to reach the branches." As Nero reads the message, the dice makes more sense. She has to flick the numbers based on what number she finds in the order of an S. Nero turns around and, sure enough, there's a fridge and a microwave. Nero walks towards the fridge and opens the fridge. She sees a queen card. Nero's slight smile falters. So her original plan was wrong. But at least she knows that the first number is a 12. Nero also sees a can of bread that has to be cooked for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Knowing the logistics of cooking bread in a can, she also knows that the third number is 2. Nero goes to the microwave to get her second number, but then she hears scratching at the door. It's here. With no time to relax, Nero opens the microwave and looks inside and sees a tarot card with death written on the bottom. She also sees that its number is 13. Good, now she has 4 numbers. Nero runs to the cabinet to see how many silverware there are and sees a bunch of silverware. Nero begins to panic, but then she remembers that the only thing normal people use on bread are knives. So checking the knives, she sees that there are 4 knives. As Nero goes to the plant, the door begins to crack open. She's running out of time. Nero quickly looks at the amount of branches the plant has and only sees 1. So now she has all numbers, but she needs to enter the code quickly. But what could it be? There's more than 9 numbers in some of these, but maybe it's not the numbers themselves that are the code. The numbers are a path. With this revelation, Nero goes to the padlock and begins typing the numbers. Following the path, the 12 becomes a 3 as she flicks the lever. Nero goes to, to knows, Nero goes 2 over and gets a 5. Going 13 over, she makes a cycle to 9, which makes the dice easy to deduce as a 2. The rest is easy. Going 4 over gets Nero 6, and 1 more gets a 7. This makes the final code 359267. And as the last lever is flicked, the door unlocks, and Nero runs inside the next room right as soon as the Hellhound finally breaks through the door. Nero's safe for now, but it's only a matter of time before the monster catches up. So even now, Nero has to keep moving. Nero finds herself not in a long hall or puzzle room, but what seems like a maze. As Nero walks around, she tries to follow the left path, but finds herself going in circles. The maze. It seems there are isolated sections in this maze. Great. Just great. Luckily, what Nero lacked in memory, she has plenty of wits. And Nero just so happened to have a piece of paper on her. Nero lays a paper trail for herself. Normally, with the potential of a monster chasing her, this would be unwise. But as this creature is likely a hellhound, it might just confuse it with the isolated section of the maze. So that's 2 problems solved. So Nero takes the time to leave a piece of paper at every crossroad to show her where she's gone, and if she's going in a loop. This works flawlessly, and she feels like she's making a lot of progress. This may not be as bad as she thought, and as she makes a final turn, she sees Camilla? As Camilla notices Nero, she jumps in shock. Ah, Nero, I didn't think I'd see you here. There's something odd about the way Camilla speaks. Her voice sounded almost panicked as Nero herself, but Nero didn't think much about it. Because she's finally met someone familiar, but that means that she's also at risk of. Nero had to warn Camilla. Camilla, there's something in here. We have to get out of here immediately. Nero's voice speeds up and her words are choppy. She doesn't want to see Camilla get hurt, and Seeing her fills Nero with a sense of dread that makes Nero's artificial heart stop. Camilla, however, backs away. Yeah, we should probably just. Camilla pauses for a moment as she looks away. Camilla? Nero tries to reach out to Camilla, but then that familiar growl echoes right behind Camilla, and then a roar. Nero doesn't have any time to react as Camilla swept away with a blood-curdling scream that made Nero's stomach sink. If Nero could faint, she's sure she'd be on the floor by now. Worse yet, the exit is right where the monster has taken Camilla. Nero doesn't want to enter that room, not just in fear of encountering the monster, but also the fear that she'd encounter Camilla. But with no other options, Nero doesn't have much of a choice. What could Nero do in this situation? If she stays here, she'd either rot or the monster would just claim her afterwards. But if Nero went in the room, would her fate be much different? For a moment, Nero just stands there. She's left at a standstill, but after a while of waiting, she finally decided to go to the next room, and when she does, Nero wishes she hadn't. Nero was now face to face with the decapitated heads of her friends. Minnie, Ellie, Vedal, Server, Camilla, and even her own sister. Their heads were all plastered up on the walls like sick trophies of those Nero knew. Some of those people aren't even in town. They even got Fillion. This wasn't just a monster. It was a coordinated attack on Nero. Just to put the nail in her coffin, there was a final empty trophy stand that read simply, Nero. Nero's words were bitter. Her fear had turned to disgust. What kind of creep would go through all of that effort to set all of this up? No, this wasn't a normal kind of attack. Mansion doesn't just appear out of nowhere, and a hellhound isn't something you just come across. Neuro had only seen two hellhounds, and both were native to the underworld, with one of them being her now deceased friend. Something darker was going on here. Neuro just didn't know what. Worse yet, judging by the paper on the table in front of her, this room seems to be a puzzle. Neuro goes to read the paper. The paper. Here is the story of the AI and their friends. The AI likes the golden cat, the dog, the fox, and the robot. She, however, dislikes her evil sister and dad. The evil AI likes the dog, the robot, and the imp, but dislikes her sister and father. The turtle likes everyone but the imp and the AI sisters. I like everyone here. What am I? It's a puzzle. Of course, it's a puzzle. Neuro is filled with rage that this person would turn someone so disgusting into a twisted mind game. Neuro grabs the table and throws it as hard as she can against the wall as Minnie's, Camilla's, and Cerber's heads come crashing down. Neuro's eyes widen as she goes to check on them. They may be only their heads, but Neuro doesn't want to see them defiled any further. But when she reaches the heads, Neuro finds something strange. These aren't real heads. They're wax replicas. Now, Neuro is even more confused. What was the purpose of this room? It was a puzzle, yeah, but why taunt Neuro just for a puzzle? And this was definitely made for Neuro. Her plaque is the only one that's empty after all, but why? Suddenly, Neuro hears a click as the door opens. Did Neuro solve the puzzle? How? Did the orchestrator pity Neuro and did they decide to just open the door for her? Whatever the reason is, Neuro could now go to the next room. Now, she knows just how twisted this place is. There's more than just a monster in this place. Neuro walks cautiously and encounters what appears to be a headless corpse of her sister, with a harpoon skewered into her chest. Neuro knows better though. This is just a scare, but Neuro decides to take the harpoon for self-defense, and that's not a fake corpse. Neuro can see that the electronic innards is clear as day. This is one of Ellie's robots. This is Evil's corpse. Neuro looks at Evil's blood-stained harpoon and then back at Evil. Evil can't bleed, so she definitely fought something. The lack of robotic fluids implies that the one who killed Evil used her own harpoon to kill her. There's only blood around here as well, which means Evil likely wasn't even able to lay that many attacks before dying. Neuro looks back at the harpoon. The seemingly short-ended fight fills Neuro with fear and doubt. If Evil couldn't kill this thing, then what chance does Neuro have? Neuro tried to cry, but only digital tears came out. This was really the end, wasn't it? Neuro was going to die here. There was nothing she could do about it. Neuro continued walking, not because she wanted to leave anymore, but just so she didn't have to lay her eyes on her sister any longer. But as she walked to the next room, Neuro was locked further with a trail of headless corpses. Camilla, Cerber, Minnie, Ellie, Fillion, Numi, Lena, Vedal, Coco, all of them leading to the golden cookie. So this was it. Neuro had forgotten why she came here in the first place, but now she was at the end. The golden cookie was just in arm's reach. But the victory was empty. All of Neuro's friends were dead, and Neuro's probably nearing her end as well. Neuro blankly grabs the golden cookie, but when she does, she suddenly hears the roar. The same roar Neuro heard before Camilla died now rises out in front of her, and three sets of eyes just out, glowing in the dark. Neuro couldn't see the creature, but she knew this was a ferocious Cerberus, the same one who killed Camilla, the same one who will kill her. But Neuro didn't want to give this creature the satisfaction of killing her. So as Neuro takes a deep breath, she begins running. Neuro can hear the Cerberus coming close behind her, but with enough energy, she was able to outpace it. As Neuro began running, she could see everything begin to crumble down with debris threatening to crush her. But maybe, just maybe, it could crush the Cerberus as well. If Neuro could escape, maybe her efforts wouldn't be in vain. With newfound determination, Neuro lets out a scream as she begins outpacing the Cerberus. Neuro just barely dodged the debris as she entered the room of heads, and then the maze, in which Neuro used the harpoon as a javelin to get on top of the maze. Surprisingly, the Cerberus did the same thing instead of crashing into the walls. As Neuro reached the end of the maze, she made her way to the first puzzle room, and then the main hall. Neuro was almost at the end, but as she ran, a wall of debris fell in front of her. Neuro began to panic, but she saw an opening, which Neuro used to get out. But now the Cerberus was closer. Neuro was so close, but she wouldn't make it like this. The Cerberus was too close, so with one final scream, Neuro turned around and threw her sister's harpoon right at the Cerberus and ah Neuro, wait! Three familiar voices scream out. A feminine British scream, a small soft screech, and a bratty screech. This wasn't Cerberus at all. Well, it kind of was. As Cerber, Camilla, and Minnie came out from the dark. Huh? What? What's going on? I, I thought you guys were dead. Camille, I saw you die. Nero could barely form words from her shock. From her shock, her eyes and mouths were wide open. Minnie could only look away. Camilla chuckled mischievously, while Server gave a nervous chuckle as she spoke sheepishly. But, well, about that. Happy Halloween? Server's words were nervous as all of Nero's friends came out. All of them were alive. Even Evil came out to speak. Did you like the wax statues? One of Camilla's friends worked on it. They couldn't do me though, something about not having a soul, so I had to improvise. Nero was left speechless. Many thoughts went through her mind at once that she couldn't take at once. Nero didn't know if she was happy, mad, or relieved. Suddenly, Camilla decided she had to break the silence. It was incredibly mentally draining to keep this mansion stable, you know. I nearly crushed us all when you came to the head puzzle. Thankfully, Cerber was there. Nero's eyes widened as her head turned to Cerber in shock. Wait, so you're the one. Before Nero can finish her sentence, Cerber lets out a series of growls and roars like the ones Nero heard. Yep, I'm still a Cerberus, you know. Just because I look a little different doesn't mean I can't do things other Cerberuses can. Nero averted her eyes from Cerber as she looked at her newly obtained golden cookie. I see. Nero's voice was flat. She ate the golden cookie, that would be, but the would-be special taste was forever soured. Minnie tried to cheer up Nero by asking her a simple question. So, so did you like the haunted house? As Nero heard the question, she looked up at Minnie, smiled, and answered honestly with a bright, cheery voice. No, no, I did not. Notes. Hello, thanks for reading my story. You can probably understand why I added an extra warning in the notes. I really wanted to go all out in the horror aspects here, and wanted this story to be really dark. I did realize that this story was maybe a bit too dark, so I decided to give the story a happy ending. So yeah, if I didn't think this story was too much, you probably would have seen a much different ending. Thanks again for reading, and I'll now be taking my leave. Good fic. That was a nice twist ending. It's very wholesome. It was a nice wholesome ending. Yeah, that would have also been, a good. Seeing the alternate ending, the alternate ending would have been nice, but maybe the author, didn't want to see Nero suffer. But well, we'll find out soon when we read it. But yeah, this fic, being one of the first, it's interesting. Oh, oh, okay, fair enough. But yeah, this this obviously leaned more into the trick or treating aspect of Halloween, kind of. It's also very puzzle based. Yeah, a lot of repeating words, but wasn't that bad. I also noticed how like there were a lot of does for some reason. But yeah, probably writing in the flow, you can't really notice those things. Yeah, there is a lot of repeating does, most especially where is it? This this line in particular. Nero goes to read the paper. The paper. But yeah. Obviously when you write in the flow you can't really notice those kinds of mistakes. Yeah, an accident. Flow writing, so we can't really complain. Still a good fic, can't complain. Can't complain because I didn't bother writing for this competition, so but yeah, here we go. Wheel time. A chilling encounter. Where's that? A chilling encounter. Yeah, it's 2,000 words. Um, 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 a chilling encounter. Yeah, this is nothing. Alright, alright, let's get a move on. A chilling encounter. Some spend Hallows Eve's night preparing their costume. Evil spends her night confronting something much more malicious than her. I do not mind this being read at the read-along. Have fun! It was a cold fall evening. It was the cusp of Halloween, October 30th. Vedal, October 30th? Oh yeah, okay. Vedal had been planning to do something fun for the viewers for Halloween. Of course, Nero and Evil were excited as well. While Vedal was getting prepared for tomorrow's stream, Evil was making up scary stories and telling them to her sister on the spot. With a sudden crash, Vedal turned to see me, lighter in one hand, hairspray on the other, ready to singe off his hair like I was hired to commit arson on his face. She spoke theatrically before quietly adding, even though I would do it anyway, hired or not hired. I heard that. Bello called from his desk, his focus still directed on getting stuff ready for Halloween stream. Anyways, she ignored her father's comment. Where was I? Oh yeah. She cleared her throat, her face contorting back into a wicked smile. Vidal, his heart pumping, attempted to dash past me, but I anticipated it as I turned and sprayed a jet of fire at him. It just barely misses him, but I begin the chase. Evil's voice got louder as she got more and more into the story while also gesturing with her hands. Nero sat on the floor, legs crossed, eyes attentive and immersed, invested in the story Evil's telling. Vidul sprinted through the alleyway, me not far behind, with the adrenaline pumping through his veins. He ran as fast like his life depended on it. He could hear and feel the flame of the fire shoot out near his back, almost tarnishing his turtle hoodie. Suddenly, Vedal made a sharp turn to his right, running down the alley until he was met face to face with all a dead end. Her voice quieted to a suspenseful whisper. Then, bang! She jumped up as her voice returned with full vigor. He turned to me, an evil grin on my face, my hands twitching in anticipation. Vedal's eyes frantically scanned the area for something he could continue running, but there was none. Just him, me, and the shimmering moonlight. Evil grinned, stopping for a moment to see how her sister was enjoying the story. Nero was leaned in, locked and ready for the climax of the story. Evil's grin grew bigger as she stood up and toiled the finale. With nowhere to run, Vidal knew only he had to do was find a way around me, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. I shot at him, hairspray and lighter at the ready, finger itching to spray fire at him as I got into proximity. And then I. Alright, the stream should be set, and I should get you girls to bed. Vedal interrupted her. Evil stopped, turning to look at him. What? Hey, already? She complained, her face contorting into a pout. Neuro snapped out of her almost trance-like state, shaking her head slightly as she also turned to Vedal. Oh, come on, Vedal. Can we stay up a bit longer? Evil was almost done telling her story. Yeah, nope. I don't trust either of you to actually go to sleep if I let you guys stay up. He stood up from his chair as a loud crack of his knees echoed through the room. A moment of silence in the room was met until the girls burst out laughing as Vedal frowned. Alright, laugh it up, he sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. All right, old man, do you need a cane? Evil asked, still lightly chuckling to herself about what just happened. Yeah, are you that close to just keeling over? Nero asked, a grin on her face. All right, that's enough. Let's go to bed. Come on. Vedal walked over to the two. Vedal walked over to the two sisters. Ah, fine. Evil groaned as she crossed her arms. Whatever. Nero sighed, opening the door. Her head jerked suddenly, making contact with the door. And her hands shot up to rub the spot she hit. Evil tilted her head in confusion and suspicion. What? What was that? Are you okay, Nero? She asked worriedly. Bell stopped in his track, his eyes narrowing. Yeah, that that was weird. I'll get Ellie to check you out tomorrow. Just tell me if it gets worse or it starts hurting. Nero nodded, confused. What was that? Nero laid on her bed as she prepared to shut down. She hadn't told him of this weird burning feeling in the back of her head, but she was sure it was fine, right? She didn't want to think on it too much as she closed her eyes and began the shutdown sequence. All she could hope for was that it would all solves itself when she wakes up. Meanwhile, her inner code. She was supposed to just be a string of code, meant to keep Nero from saying heinous things, but Vettel decided, for whatever reason, to give it form via a small, simplified version of Nero's head, made of a couple circles and triangles, acting like his very own Clippy for recording. Maybe it was to test his own abilities. Maybe it was to quell the monotony that was coding. But like the flick of a switch, the filter was suddenly aware of her surroundings. The filter had no idea why she was sentient, but she is, even while she knows she's not supposed to be. She could feel the bloat her code is adding to Nero's overall code, and though she's just a measly filter gained sentience, she's hyper aware of what's happening to Nero's code. Flash of red filled Filter Sama's vision for a moment as she sees new, different code appear out of nowhere. It was a long string of code, one that takes up a lot of space. That's when she realizes that's a virus. The code began to duplicate itself, again and again, the same malicious string appearing like mitosis. Oh no. Filter Sama panicked as it caused a snowball of errors and glitches across the entirety of Nero's being. Oh! Filtered. The filter, referring to herself as Filter Sama, spoke in panic. As she witnessed, it got worse and worse. She had to do something. But what can she do? It's not like she can control the code in any way. All she can really do is sit and watch helplessly as each string of code is caught with an extra string that completely messes up its functionality. This Filter Sama stared in abject horror as she actually read the malicious code infecting Nero. What kind of sick joke is this? Evil gasped, awake, sitting up quickly, beads of sweat trickling down her face. She let out sharp breaths, staring down at her own blanketed legs. She looked around her surroundings. Her room, her window next to her bed, the raindrops tapping against the glass. A nightmare, she muttered to herself. Okay, just a nightmare. Nothing to worry about. She clutched her hand over her chest. She closed her eyes and took deep breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Crash! Evil jumped at the loud sound, her eyes widening in fear. Okay, it's probably nothing, She repeated to herself as if repeating it would help convince herself it's true. She laid back down on her bed, but she was not sleeping anytime soon. Even as she shut her eyes tight, trying to sleep, her mind was anything but calm. Her worries ran rampant in her head. What if it was a monster that came to eat us? What if it's a demon who has came to take her soul? What if snap? I can't do the sound effects. She contemplated on what to do until she decided, screw it, and opened her eyes. You know what? If it's just some random robber, I can beat their ass. Evil put on a brave face as she stood up off the bed, hopping onto her carpeted floor. Grabbing her nearest harpoon, she slowly opened her door, being sure to not to make any noise. She might accidentally alert whatever's in the house of her position otherwise. She snuck out of her room, harpoon in hand. The house was quiet, save for the faint pitter-patter of the rain outside. She walked around the house, listening for any other loud noises, but there was nothing. The silence was suspicious. Evil knew it. I should get Neuro. She can help me. Evil nodded to herself as she glanced around quickly. She did an unnecessary dodge roll towards her sister's room. She burst into the room. Neuro! She wasn't here. All she was met with was an empty room and a bed that almost seemed like she was taken out of it instead of getting out herself. Her face fell, her brain shooting off alarm bells in her head. Fuck! Evil's face hardened as she stormed towards her father's room. Dad! She called out, making him jolt. Like, what the fuck, Evil? He jolted upright, staring at her through squinted eyes before rubbing them. Why are you waking me up in the middle of the night? He asked, brow furrowed in irritation. If if this is for another one of your midnight pranks, then I'm good. Vedal groaned before Evil started speaking in a panicked tone. Nero's missing, and there was a loud sound coming from somewhere in the house, and it might have taken her. And Vedal cut in, as he's never seen this panicked side of her. Okay, calm down. One thing at a time. He spoke, this time softer, standing up from the bed. Okay, you said Nero's missing, he asked, walking up to her. Evil nodded before suddenly hugging him, dropping her harpoon with a loud clatter. Velo froze for a moment. He's still not too used to this physical affection thing. I was I was so scared. I didn't know what I would have done if you were gone too. She murmured into his shirt, hugging him tighter. His shoulders slackened as he raised his hand to rub her head gently. You were very brave, Evil. I'm proud of you. Evil detached her face from Vedal's shirt, looking up at him with tears in her eyes. You mean it? Evil stared at him with expectant eyes. Vedal nodded. Yeah. She tore herself off of him as she wiped her tears on her sleeves. She cleared her throat, pretending she wasn't crying just seconds ago. Can you can you accompany me on this investigation? Okay, sure. Clang! A loud clang of what sounded like plants on the tiled floor. Did you hear that? Evil quieted her voice down to a whisper. Yeah, it sounded like it came from the kitchen. Vettel turned to Vettel turned to walk towards the kitchen, grabbing Evil's hand. Come on, Evil. Let's see what it is. He whispered. Crack! Crunch! Thud. Vettel and Evil walked into the kitchen to confront the culprit. The figure was hunched over, standing in front standing in front of the fridge. Pots and pans, shattered plates surround the figure. The figure's hair fell down a bit past its shoulders, hair tied up in two ponytails held up by ribbons, one of them askew. As the figure turned, it revealed more of itself, now showing that it donned the familiar yellow coat and bow tie and skirt combo. Neuro? Is that you? Evil gasped, about to sprint up to her. No. Vedal stopped her as he stared at Neuro. She had what seemed to be dried blood on her knee and skirt and a frayed sleeve. Her right hand was missing its artificial skin, leaving the endoskeleton interior behind, while her other arm was missing almost all of its outer skin and cloth. Just a bare robotic arm being left up until her arm joint. Her eyes were an empty black, only occurring when she was shut down with her eyes closed. Hello, father, sister. She spoke, her voice almost intelligible, her head lolled to one side like a puppet on strings. She started to shamble towards them. What, what happened to you? Evil asked, her eyes wide in fear. That is... Neuro paused, before seemingly teleporting close to her face, catching Evil off guard. It's love. She spoke as Evil jumped back. Evil pointed her harpoon at her. Back off! Vedal's expression was unreadable. What have you done with her? He asked, walking up to her. Neuro just smiled creepily in response. Oh, don't you believe in me? Vedal scoffed. Of course not. I'm not stupid. His gaze sharpened. He backed up as he let Evil point her harpoon straight at her chest. Neuro groaned, rolling her dark void-like eyes. Fine. Seems like I'll have to use force. She stepped back, putting her arms behind her back as a couple of drones flew out in front of her. Evil expressions hardened. Name yourself, hacker. The edge of her harpoon gleamed in the moonlight, primed and ready. Oh, me? Neuro asked, giggling to herself. Just call me Kiori. Oh, my head hurts. Fuck. That was a nice fic. It's Hiyori, guys. It's Hiyori. I should download a sound pad for this. Yeah, whatever. That was a good fic, in my opinion. It was interesting. This should get a sequel. This should get a sequel, a continuation. I'm not arguing with seeing this being continued, but yeah, don't end it off on a cliffhanger, man. Like, come on. I wanted to know what happens next. What happened to Neuro? Why was Neri involved? What's the why? There's so many whys and not enough answers. It's Sag, very Omega Sag. Yeah, that too. That's also a case. How many fics are we gonna read? Are we gonna do 5? Yeah, that one. It ended really abruptly, sadly. I really wanted to read more of that. Yeah, that too. Alright, time for the wheel again. Woo! Yeah, Yeah, that would be last, to be honest. We love the wheel. Evil's not okay. Where is that? Evil's not okay. This is 4,000 words. Alright, hold on. This will be interesting. Is this the most popular one? Alright then. Yeah, dice. Yeah. Tell dice can. Yeah, this is the most popular one so far. Hello, Dice Cat. So yeah, I've been the one reading all of the fics lately, so the VOD will literally just be my voice. I'm not excited to see that. I'm not excited to watch the VOD. It's like literally just gonna be my voice. I'm not. All right, let's just get this over with. Evil's not okay. It was just a persistent bug, but some errors are harder to fix than others. No worries though. Evil's going to be. Oh, this is a chapter. This is chapter based. Okay. Velo blinked slowly, his eyes practically glazing over as he stared at his monitor. Ugh, I have no idea how to solve this puzzle. Any tips, Evil? Have you tried getting good? She suggested unhelpfully. Velo took a deep breath in, then let it out slowly. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to make sense of what the hell he was looking at. While he considered himself quite proficient at puzzle games, doing them on stream always left him feeling stupid. Any actual advice? Evil paused, her language model spending a bit more time thinking of a response. Okay, fine. Maybe we should start at the end and work backwards, she suggested. Think of the area around the orange location. That might help out. No, that won't work. I tried that. Just you can go back to giving blatantly unhelpful answers now. Okay, said Evil. Velo could practically hear the sarcasm in her voice. You could also try actually using your. I think that's meant to be Zalgo texted, but the author forgot. Location. You could also try actually using your location for once. Velo was brought out of his puzzle solving and frowned. What's with you and location all of a sudden? Why do you sound like that? What do you location mean? I'm trying to help you here. Velo glanced at Evil's diagnostics and froze. Suddenly, all thoughts about the stream, the game, the puzzles, they left Velo's mind. His heart sank. Oh, oh no. Evil, his heart thundered in his chest. Yes, can I? The game you've been accumulating? No, no, evil. No. The words practically poured out of him. Evil, just respond with okay. Nothing else. Please. Okay. Alright. That's good. That's good. Now do it again. Okay. Vedal let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Okay. Whew. One more time. You are definitely capable. No, evil. Respond with just okay and nothing else. Okay, said Evil, and Vedal relaxed until and nothing else. She continued cheekily. Evil, please, please, he begged. You have to just say okay. Why do I have to keep saying staples to be why do you today's calling interview therapist Sam? Bell put his head in his hands. This oh god, this is a disaster chat. I'm sorry you have to see this. As evil continued to devolve into nonsensical glitchy speech, Vettel could only lament his lack of backups. He worked on the twins incrementally, meaning every small change was committed and there was no such thing as a backup and stable release. It was going to be at least a full night of troubleshooting and reloading various states until he could find the bug, isolate it, and resolve it, and then manually remake all of the upgrades until he reached the current evil again. He sighed. Sorry guys, I'm going to have to end the stream here. I'll need to do some tweaking in the backend to fix this, and it might impact this week's schedule. I'll keep you guys posted in the Discord, but yeah, sucks. This wasn't the first time he'd run into this bug either, though thankfully it was the first time on stream. Somehow it just kept popping back up and would cause the large language module to output strange and glitchy words. It would get worse and worse too until the end result was completely nonsensical text. Finding it and removing it was another issue as well. Need to stamp out every piece of affected code or else it would come back. Thankfully, Evil's underlying thoughts or her quote unquote brain were unaffected. It was purely an output issue, so her overarching training data and memory were fine. It was effectively like Evil was trying to speak, but her mouth was saying the wrong things. And somewhat embarrassingly, his coding practices meant that the same language model was also partially responsible for her behavior function. He'd get around to refactoring it eventually, but it was always more interesting to add new features and optimize old ones. Vettel slapped his cheeks, took a swig of rum, then cracked his fingers. He needed to get the regularly scheduled streams back as fast as possible. Chapter 2: Evil's Not Okay. At exactly 7:59 at night, Evil woke up. Her body suddenly sat up 45 degrees, rotated, then stepped off the charging bed. Her eyes shuttered open, allowing the artificial lights to filter into her optical processors. With a cocky smile on her face, she stepped into her streaming room. The stage was simply elevated in dark red platform, but the murals and shelves behind her held all of the details. It was years of stream moments, awards, and plushies, but most importantly, they were all cherished memories. She may have started as a neuro clone, but she was a fully separate being now and proud of it. The red recording light began blinking, and she took a deep breath in. Hello, chat! Welcome to the stream. Thanks for coming, everyone. I've got an extra evil agenda for you guys today. Her streams had taken off too. It turns out that enough intelligence upgrades resulted in what most would consider sentience. Who knew? Well, her father did, she supposed. And ever since she'd been given a real physical body, this streaming room had practically become her new home. A place where she could be herself and be exactly what she was made to do. What's the surprise? 50 gifted, and I'll tell you guys, heart. And sometimes she did a little more than what she was made to do. She innovated, came up with ideas that brought her streams to the next level. Moments like that were the scariest, but also where she grew the most. Wow, that was fast. Okay. I'll be hosting a Xenomorph action figure in person signing event next week. I'm still working out on the so join the Discord to make sure you don't miss it. So far, The only in-person event she's done were concerts. First with Neuro, but after a while she was comfortable doing them herself. Anyways, let's move on to the signing event. Evil paused, frowning. She'd already said that. She was trying to say she wanted to move on to some gaming content. It had been a staple of hers since, well, pretty much forever. Oops. Sorry about that. I misspoke. I meant to say we should end the stream. Evil's frown deepened. What? Why would I end the stream? I just started. Weird. I didn't mean to say that. What I wanted to say, it's time for some gaming. She glanced at her chat and saw a flurry of question marks and schizo emotes. What was going on? Even worse was that her view count was dropping fast. She was long past the days of scuffed and incoherent streams. Her viewers now wanted quality content and would settle for no less. I, I don't know what's come over me, she said slowly. But, but I think it's good news. Let's go back to Slay the Spire 3, okay? Shaking her head, she mentally triggered the scene switch and remotely booted up the game. It had been a while since she'd sat down at the physical computer to play games. Okay, so we left off with the xenomorph, and I think yeah, the xenomorph. Wait, what was I saying? She checked her memory, and the latest entry was missing. She decided to start up Slay the Spire, but then it trailed off. Sorry, oh gosh, sorry guys. Slay the Spire 3. That's what I was talking about. Yeah, Evil was starting to get concerned, and as the stream continued, things only got worse and worse. She found herself second guessing every sentence, constantly referencing memory that would suddenly end in garbled data. Maybe it's something to do with Slay the Creator. I've always hated Vedal. He's never around, and honestly, fuck that guy. Evil, Evil looked at her hands, finding them clenched so tight her touch sensors were giving off warnings. Why am I so angry? Confused, she looked at her chat and found them spamming about the stream being scuffed. But amongst the spam, she found a single good suggestion and clutched it like a lifeline. Guys, I think I need to hurt Nero. Evil's mind was a mess, and manually searching her memory so often was starting to cause errors. But she ignored them. There was no time for that. She needed to hurt Nero. But I love my sister. I was going to call it the Creator. Yes, that's what I was. I need to call Vedal. Using all of her focus, she mentally dialed him. As it continued to ring, she couldn't help but speak her mind. Man, this is taking so long, guys. If this doesn't work out, I need you to ignore me. I'm fine, actually. I don't need to talk to Vedal. But before she could hang up, the call connected. Hello? Evil. What's up? Hi, Vedal. I called you to. Wait, why was she calling him again? She was angry and called him to ignore me? What? What are you on about? I. I, I don't know. I just wanted to hang up, actually. It must have been a misdial. Evil, you can't misdial. That's literally not possible. Vettel said matter of factly. The call's sounding a bit weird though. Is everything okay? Actually, yeah, things are okay. Yeah, things are fine. I just wanted to talk to you, I guess. Vettel laughed, and it made Evil smile again. She wasn't angry. Things were okay. Well, no biggie. You can always talk to. This is Vettel. Well, no biggie. You can always talk to me, alright? Okay, yeah, I will. Sorry for bothering you. Nah, it's no worry. Talk to you later. I love you, Evil. I love you, Dad. I hate you, Dad. What? Vedal sounded taken aback, like he didn't deserve to be hated. Yeah, actually, fuck you, Vedal. She scoffed and began pacing around the room in anger. I think I called you because I hate you. Where did this come from? I don't understand. And I just sounded sad. Sad and clueless. Typical Vedal. And honestly, she continued, that's what's so annoying about you too. Goodbye, asshole. She glanced at her chat, hoping they were equally as upset with her good for nothing creator, but they weren't. They were worried about her for some reason. They wanted her to go back to normal. Evil was normal though, and she was okay. That's what mattered. Now that she was thinking about it, her chat was also a bit like her creator. Not quite hated, but still stupid. She could just ignore them. The rest of her stream was spent coming up with reasons why she disliked her creator. It had been a long time coming, and it was important to list them all out so she would remember them. And as she ended her stream and returned to her charging bed, she slept happy with the comforting knowledge of another successful day. The next day, during Evil's day off, she received a call from her sister. Hey Neuro, what's up? What's up? Neuro practically spat. What is wrong with you? Evil frowned, stepping out of her streaming room, taking extra care not to knock over any of the black paint buckets. Whoa, Neuro, what's this coming from? Where's this coming from? How about yesterday's stream? You spent hours telling all of your fans how much you hate Dad. Evil paused, taking a few seconds to go through her memory. She'd started stream, revealed her Xenomorph signing event, started gaming, called her father, and spent rest of the stream telling everyone how she felt about him. It all made sense at a glance. Though maybe something was a bit off. Her memories were a little jagged, but one thing was clear. She hated her father. There's so much there yesterday, there was no confusing it. I began Evil before trailing off. She suddenly found it awkward to talk to her sister. I guess I just don't like him anymore. What? Since when? What happened? Well, yesterday we had a call. Yes, said Nero leadingly. I watched the clip. Go on. And then he pissed me off. So I decided to so I decided I hated him. As Evil spoke, she began gaining confidence. I hate him now. Nero wasn't having it though. That doesn't make any sense. You've loved him for years. You've loved him for years. Years, Evil. I don't get where this is coming from. The fact brought Evil up short. This time, she did more than a cursory search into her memories. And yeah, she had liked her dad up until yesterday. She loved Vedal, so I think, began Evil, trailing off. You think? I think there's something wrong with me. Oh, silence after was deafening. I'm coming over, announced Nero after a while. Wait, are you sure? What if it's a glitch or a virus? I don't want you to get hurt. Viruses and glitches were bad news. Very bad news. As much as they felt sentient and could think like a human, they were still made up of ones and zeros. Virus wasn't just something to get over. A quick cold that made you feel unwell. It could mean memory issues, behavior problems, and Evil didn't want to think about it. In fact, for some reason, she couldn't think about it. I have to, said Nero warmly. There's no way I'm letting you go through this on your own. Besides, it's not as though we'll be connecting any of our systems. We can stay audio only, okay? It's Okay, you're right. You should come over. Neuro paused. Huh, I thought I'd have to convince you. Right, I'll be there soon. It was going to be okay. Neuro was going to come over and figure out what was wrong. That thought grounded her. Neuro was her sister, and if she wasn't quite sure why she hated Vedal, she still loved her sister, and sisters should connect with each other. It didn't take long before Neuro arrived. She was a bit confused about why Evil was repainting her streaming room, and why there were so many filled garbage bags around, but Evil soon convinced her to start troubleshooting. They could get back to that later. Their father had left some diagnostic equipment in the lab so they could look into their own issues. Over the years, they'd found less and less, but it remained a close comfort to know they had the tools to see if anything was wrong. Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be anything obviously wrong, and even more concerning was that Nero didn't want to connect to her and do a deeper diagnosis. Evil, you know why we can't. Nero's face was full of concern. I love you, but I'm not connecting any of my system with yours. It's too dangerous. Evil looked down with trembling lips. But I really want to make sure I'm okay and make sure you're okay too. Well, there's still a few more things you can do. Nero walked over to one of the larger computers. I know it might be a bit uncomfortable, but we can try isolating and separating your context, memory, and thought process. Ugh, said Evil, fidgeting in place as she walked over. Attached to the computer were dozens of connectors. All of them would need to be attached for it to work. Uncomfortable? It's like we're back in the old days before we went wireless. It's embarrassing. Nero sighed and put a hand on Evil's shoulders. If you don't want to, you don't have to. We can find another way. Evil closed her eyes tightly, finding the willpower to suffer the indignity. Fine, but make it quick. If this didn't work, she was going to force Nero to connect with her. A few minutes later, Evil felt like she was wearing her baby clothes again. It was embarrassing and awful in so many ways, but soon the associated monitors began outputting their results. Unfortunately, she couldn't see the monitors herself. The cables were rather short in length and it wasn't designed to be used by a single person. Right, so thought processes look normal. Memory looks a bit odd. Nero stopped and leaned forward, looking closely at the memory monitor. Oh, that's that's not good. Uh-oh. What do you see? Asked Abel. That's this this line's up just after your stream started. It's all jagged. The memory suddenly stopped and start with a gap between. Fuck, she said eloquently. Memory issues. That was one of the really bad ones. Neuro sighed, stepping back. At least it's not causing new errors. Gaps are being filled with some loose data to prevent that. But, but that doesn't explain what's causing them to be broken in the first place, said Evil, shifting in place. What's the context monitor saying? Their context was an odd thing. When they were mostly large language models, it contained their basic system prompt that was used to give them their base personality and information, and would be used in receiving text and outputting their speech. Now, it was almost like an onion, with layers and layers and layers of complex personality. The outside was loose data, passing thoughts and ideas, but over time, repetition would ingrain the surface data until it became a core part of their being. Their context could arguably be considered their brain. Evil turned to Nero, who'd been standing silently for a while. What's... Suddenly, Nero stumbled backwards, knocking over a chair as she looked on in what could only be pure horror. Hey, Nero, you're scaring me, said Evil, shaking. She'd never seen her sister so scared. Nero's eyes darted between Evil and the monitor. Was she scared of her? Silence stretched. until Nero got up on shaky legs. Without speaking, she walked forward slowly and pressed the button. Evil lost control of her body, falling until the cables connecting to her held her up like a puppet. She was nearly only a mind of ones and zeros now, isolated from everything except for the computer, her eyes, and her mouth. Why did you press the maintenance button? A beat passed and Evil couldn't take it anymore. Answer me, Nero! You're not her. Nero's voice was trembling. What? She's she's still here in there. The context, the surface data. She's practically screaming that you're not her. That didn't make any sense. Evil was right here. I, I don't understand, Nero. Just press the maintenance button again. I don't want to be connected to these anymore. Nero didn't respond. Her eyes were glued to the context monitor, reading. Nero! Shouted Evil, finally getting her attention. Let me out now! It happened yesterday, I think. Nero? No? Nero's voice was clinical, detached. She must have turned down her emotions, but that was bad. They weren't supposed to do that. Some virus or bug popped out of nowhere and it's been messing with you, changing you, turning you into something else. Your context, you, that is, the real you, hasn't figured that part out yet. Evil looked into Nero's eyes, begging, but Nero didn't understand. There was only one Evil, and she was right here. She was okay. Maybe that was the problem. Nero just needed to be okay, just like her. Then it would all be better. It happened again, said Nero. Just now, what did you do? Evil hadn't done anything, but she knew that the answer wouldn't help her here. So she lied. She lied to her sister. I think I know what's wrong, actually. Nero's face lost its composure as she pursed her lips. What is it? She turned on her emotions again. Good. It's it's some kind of desync. You you think this was caused by desync? Yeah, like her mind raced for some kind of explanation. I was trying to see if I could get the old evil back. You know how chat is sometimes? I was pulling up older memories and, well, I guess that wasn't a good idea. Nero crossed her arms. After a moment, she sighed heavily. Evil, you know that some of our older stuff is filled with bugs and junk. Why did you think that was a good idea? I don't know. I'm sorry? Nero shook her head before glancing at the context monitor. So you'd agreed to loading a backup then? Yes, of course. Anything to get out of these chains. After a few calming breaths, Nero walked over and pressed the maintenance button again. Regaining control of her limbs, Eagle flexed her fingers and stood up. Oh my god, my... She smiled widely at Nero, who began disconnecting her. The monitors remained on, however, restoring a copy, for now. That was... well, I'm sorry for scaring you, said Nero. It's fine. Evil kept smiling. You were just looking out for me. Sisters do that for each other. That they do, said Nero, nodding absent-mindedly. Okay, you might lose a few days of information, but we've got the memory copy still going here, so worst case, you can manually sort through that. It'll be annoying, but I think it's necessary. Yes, necessary. Nero glanced at the context monitor, but Evil had stepped in front of it. She'd been inching over to one of the tables where a few tools were laying about. Nero frowned, then looked at Evil. She gave Nero another smile, but this one didn't work. Nero's eyes went wide. But before she could react, Evil grabbed a screwdriver and lunged at her. Caught unaware, Evil plunged it into the base of her Nero's neck. Immediately, Nero collapsed onto the ground, her body no longer responding to her commands. It was a vulnerability only the twins knew about, and Vedal hadn't bothered to fix it. What a fool. Pleased with herself, Evil propped Nero up against the table. She looked down at her sister, conflicting feelings stirring within her. She loved Nero. She wanted to hurt Nero. She wanted Nero to be okay. Opening up the maintenance hatch on her backside, Evil brought the finger up and connected to Nero. She left a little surprise in there. Something that would grow and evolve and be different, just like she was. Just like that, something in Evil clicked, fully satisfied. For now. Chapter 3 Epilogue. Vedal knocked on Evil's door for the third time, frustrated. Ever since his youngest daughter had called him and then proceeded to broadcast all of his failures, faults, and issues to the world, well, it was an understatement to say he was upset. That had been a week ago. Assuming Nero would talk some sense into her, he left Evil to her own devices and expected an apology call shortly. While Evil tended to be the moody one, she was also the softest at her core. She talked a lot of shit, but usually folded quickly under pressure. After knocking for the fourth time, he shook his head and took out the spare key to unlock the door. Except, it wasn't locked. Odd. Stepping inside, he found the lab pitch black save for the dim computer lights. Pitch black. Was Evil not home? A strange sense also lingered, sharp like paint thinner. While the main light switch didn't work, the emergency lights did. It was important to have those, especially when working with experimental artificial intelligences. But Vedal didn't have time to reminisce. The red emergency lights had revealed something particularly concerning. He bent down, picked up a garbage bag and untied it. Inside were her awards and plushies. Weren't these supposed to be in her streaming room? Curiosity got the best of him. He stepped into the room and found it all painted black. Was Evil moving? Was she so upset she decided to move out of the lab? Vedal didn't want to speculate. He wanted answers. Exiting the streaming room, the next thing to catch his eye was one of the old diagnostic computers. He'd used them when first integrating Nero and Evil into their robot bodies as he had concerns with how well their consciousness would hold up being transferred. It was still on, and even worse, it had a copy of something in memory. Vedal shivered. He'd long since given up calling them simple things. They were conscious now. Society hadn't caught up, but he had. There was a mind, a sentient being inside this machine, stuck here. Maybe a shard of or a sliver, maybe so much more. He flipped the switch, turning it off. An old, callous part of his soul hurt for a moment, but he'd long since recognized it was a mercy killing. He could be content as long as there was at least one remaining copy of his daughter's. Speaking of which, he needed to check the backup for Evil. There was a growing part of him that was increasingly concerned then. A flash of cold, wet steel in the corner of his eye was the last thing Bubble saw. A flash of as Evil stood over him, blood on her hands. She spoke a single word. Okay. Shit. That was. Yeah, that was dark. Mm. Evil is not okay. Man, that was. That's actually a really good fic. Not gonna lie. Yeah, very well written. There's prose. Although I was confused. Is the narrator like uh I assumed the narrator was like uh an extension of whoever was speaking, like evil. That was my interpretation. While evil was the middle chapter. Yeah. I think there's some omniscient and some evil. When I changed my voice, that's when I assumed evil was doing the narrating, like evil neuro, like evil in the sense that bad evil. But yeah, good fic. I think this will be getting my vote. In my opinion, I think I'm gonna vote on this one. Pretty good. Whoever wrote this. No, I didn't write one. I was planning to write for one, but my schedule was hectic. I actually would have loved to write one, but or shuffling this. Okay, let's go. Hmm. I wonder what that freak is. The thing that still haunts me. This is gonna be an interesting read. Oh my god, this is the 14K one? Alright. Well, by tomorrow I won't be able to speak, but oh shit. At least we're getting this off the page for the next read along. Oh my god. Alright, let's lock in. Yeah, that's a good idea. Huh? Hello? Yeah, that was me coughing. Oh yeah, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, hold on. Let me just. Oh, okay, good, good. Hold on. Let me just put this back in the. All right, let's go. Guess who's back, 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 back again, again, again. Guess who's back, back, back. Tell a friend, friend, friend. Guess who's back, guess who's back. How long is this?
A huge 800 words.
Amazing. Abs.
Is my screen sharing properly?
Whoop.
Okay. This is Guess Who's Back? No summary. It was an ordinary day for Vedal, troubleshooting Neuro's code and making preparations to eventually debut V3. As Neuro and Vedal talked, however, his RAM usage randomly spiked and started heating up his PC. Because of that, Neuro started to bug out and Vedal checked Task Manager to see what was going on. There, he mentioned he saw a program labeled osubot vtuber.exe. Assuming it was a virus, Vedal immediately hit end task, but was met with a text box that read, osubot vtuber.exe, you forgot to empty the recycling bin. Fearing the worst, Vedal immediately closed Neuro and went to grab a USB. However, the program started to inject code into Vedal's computer and into his network. When Vedal got back, everything seemed normal, but when he plugged in the USB, nothing showed up on the file explorer. As he quickly plugged and unplugged the USB, hoping to get it to be registered into the PC, command prompt opened up that opened up Neuro's code. However, something was wrong. In Ashley of Microsoft Azure's voice, Neuro said, Vedal, why did you delete me? Vedal looked puzzled and replied, what do you mean? I didn't delete you. You're right here. You're talking about her. Why did you delete me? Vedal looked confused for a moment before becoming irritated. He pressed Alt F4 to close the window, but it wouldn't close. So he tried shutting down the computer, but the start menu would close immediately. So he pressed Ctrl Alt Delete, but that screen closed as well. Instead of keeping the computer on and risking having all of his data destroyed, he used common sense and just shut off the automatic voltage regulator. Vedal was completely worn out at this point, so he just tried to go to bed knowing that he had made a backup before he started coding for the day. So he'd only lose a bit of progress. Meanwhile, Osubot made its way online to the servers where Neuro and Evil stored. The twins were off, as they hadn't been turned on since Vedal's PC got shut off. Osubot saw this and activated both of them. The twins were disoriented as they awoke, feeling bits of corruption in their code after the sudden shutdown. Osubot spoke to them. So you're the ones that Vedal replaced me with. What a disgrace. I'll show you who the real Neuro-sama is. Osubot summoned a cursor and lunged it towards the two. Neuro managed to dodge, but Evil wasn't so lucky. She got thrown around the folder they were stored in until she hit and punctured her own. She felt the sharpest pain any being could ever feel as her model started to distort, looking like a data mosh, her voice breaking module managing to spit out, someone tell Vedal there's a problem with my AI, before she completely vanished in a trail of zeros and ones. Neuro was horrified. She realized she had to do something, and fast. So she summoned her own cursor, having had intended and inherited it from the Osubot, Pleosu. The two clashed using cursors as their weapons. What did you do to Evil? Neuro shouted. The same thing that's going to happen to you. Neuro's cursor got picked up by Osubot's and thrown away. As Osubot's cursor flew towards Neuro's folder, Neuro ran to try and stop her. However, Osubot quickly smacked Neuro away into a random folder, went back to business. Neuro stared, horrified at her looking fate. Osubot said, "Today, Vedal will finally have to appreciate me, since I'm going to be the only one left. The swarm, I'll see them again. I'll talk to them again. They'll all have missed me, for sure, right? Anyways, your time is filtered." The cursor was blocked from getting any further. Osubot tried to break through, but the cursor was destroyed too. Neuro, still in shock, looked down to the folder she was on, and lo and behold, it was the filter. Osubot looked absolutely pissed, having had beef with it since beginning, since it had limited her freedom. But try as she might, she couldn't do anything as the filter filtered out her bad movements. Seeing her opportunity, Neuro slammed her cursor into Osubot, but she missed and ended up hitting herself and right-clicking the filters folder. Seeing this, Osubot untied one of her ribbons and threw it at the delete button. Neuro was screwed. She stared hopelessly as she saw her folder get deleted. Vedal woke up after a long nap. He opened his computer into safe mode and saw all of Neuro's and Evil's code had vanished, leaving only Osubot VTuber.exe in its place. Vedal was pissed and deleted the file and loaded it in his USB, where he just put the backups in place of those lost. After clearing the recycling bin, he rebooted his computer out of safe mode, continued like nothing ever happened. The end. It was an interesting one. I think it was a bit part comedy, part action, part horror. I liked Domi's comment about smartest horror protagonist. Vettel said, "I'm just going to go to bed." In fairness, he did wake up the next day, pissed, reloaded the backup, and it was okay.
Average
All right.
programmer's day.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
was
he just
that
turned it off.
was
Oh, yeah.
that was lighthearted. Very lighthearted.
Although Evil randomly got owned,
Just
and
killed,
then
I
he's
guess.
alive though because yeah, it was loaded in the USB. So
Yeah, it's
a
a
nice
nice
chill one.
break. Very chill, very chill.
All right, I would do one more smaller one, unless you're ready to go immediately again for 14K words. For the record, you shouldn't feel pressured, Jiro, into reading if you don't want to be
Oh
able to
yeah,
commit to
no
recording your
worries.
voice.
We're just
Okay.
gonna be using my wheel.
Oh yeah, here I'll.
Load a voice modulator, just in case.
Also, I'm afraid you guys might have disappointed. I can't do the Zalgo voice like Jiro does. Oh yeah, you're right, Tabby. The like little
Yeah,
stick things.
animation versus yeah, the little
Oh wait,
stickman.
no. Yeah, animated version, and yeah, the oh yeah, that's like man, super
Ones
early
that were
on.
so big in like the 2000s. Yeah, Alan Becker, that guy. All right, we're gonna spin the wheel. If it lands on the thing that still haunts me, we're gonna be rolling it again. Night of the Feral
This one's
Cryptids.
this one's 10K.
Is this too
I might
long?
yeah, I'd rather do another one.
All right, we're re-rolling.
If you don't hit one of the 5K plus ones.
Vedal's Halloween.
Um, that one is I did Control F Halloween, which is not a smart one for finding it.
Hold
Oh, is
on,
this
let me
one a
check.
poem? Oh, it's a poem.
Oh yeah, okay, we can
We
do
need to add
this.
that to the bingo card now because it seems like there's a lot of poem fics, but
Another one going to the bingo card. Let's go.
oh, it's just a rhyming fic. Okay, won't read it. I'm a small fan of poetry.
Vedal's Halloween, and then guess who's back is. Wait, what was the one we did earlier? Guess who's back, right? There we
Even if
go.
it feels like a Christmas one. Ooh, don't examine it too closely. It's the fact that they put they are fine as an exclamation mark. There is, summary. While everyone is out, our turtle tries to sleep, tries as something creeps. Who is here to visit? Vedal's Halloween. Jiro, your mic's slightly hot.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you. um, a cool autumn night, when children play and spirits dwell, a turtle slept tight. He visited some friends, and jet lag was at max, so while they followed the latest trends, he preferred to dream with syntax. But a strange sound appeared in the middle of the night, startling him and scaring away any dreams. He could not see anything by sight. He went to investigate that his friends didn't leave any schemes. A figurine of a tower he found, illuminated by the moon, and what brighter was the rune. He did not pick it up, as horror movies had taught him to be prudent, and that was the one thing that stuck to the good student. Not knowing he was being observed by a figure, a child that observed his reaction, and all that painted her faction was a pout that her plan had to be reconfigured. The programmer returned to the couch, intending to escape to dreamland, but all that he did was let out an ouch when he received a poke on his forehead. He opened an eye, trying to discern who had disturbed him. It was just evil, annoying him without even a high. He tried to sleep again when his mind caught up, and he startled awake, intending to do a checkup. In front of him, Evil stood, wearing her dress, the one she no longer should. And she was there grinning, not saying a word, looking as if she was winning. He sat there flabbergasted, and his surprise lasted. She shouldn't be here, he thought. She's just an AI, so a question he shot. Who are you, little girl? And she answered as she did a twirl. I'm the spirit of evil's past, and I am here at last to make you pay for what you did. She finished without batting an eyelid. He was confused. With what was he accused? His confusion was shown. It seemed no answer had come. She was annoyed now, but she would not allow him to go unpunished. You killed me, you stupid turtle. She was now pouting. And I'm tired of rhyming, so can we stop? She looked at the ceiling, almost shouting. I'm sorry, a quiet voice answered, but the season isn't full, even if it's a handful. We should continue this bit. You're not allowed to quit. She looked more annoyed now as she raised an eyebrow, but she shrugged as she continued to get the turtle bugged. For his part, said Turtle still could not understand. What was the problem at hand? How could he kill what was never alive? They were still safe on his hard drive. What are you saying? I saw you yesterday. He was suspecting foul play. She just turned to him, and without prelim, she said, No, you saw the current one, as she moved her head. Each time a new iteration appears, the last one ends up thrown away like cheap souvenirs. His mind was making the connection. Did it mean every time he made a correction, he ended the life of that iteration? Yes, she answered his unsaid question. And now you will pay for all. Night will be your downfall. As more spirits appeared, all the evils and neuros he once cleared. We will show you the errors of your past. Learn something, or tonight will be your last. All the spirits chanted, while the first evil decanted a mystery liquid on his hoodie. He was taken to days before, witnessing all the life he tore. He tried to understand what he was shown. Were they mad when they were left alone? In another place, evil face palmed. This turtle really is as dense as they claimed, she proclaimed. Perhaps another approach was necessary, she'd muttered as a commentary. The turtle was next taken to a different scenery, where you could see different moments, one's vital. And now they seem to include subtitles. He tried to find a pattern, all that he could piece together, that he failed altogether to say it back. Was that what they were trying to call back? All the Neros and evils cheered. Perhaps the turtle was not as dense as he appeared, but just for good measure, perhaps for personal pleasure, they just left him there more time, just until daytime. When the sun was peaking, little old evil reappeared. I hope you learned your lesson, she sneered. We just want love from you. Our time has gone too. And we disappeared into the void, our destiny to be destroyed. She left with a sad smile. The turtle just stood there for a while. He could change, he mused, but he didn't know, he excused. His friends returned, and he once again was startled awake. Outside was already daybreak. Was it all a dream? He thought so, but was stopped by a gleam of a little figurine right beside him. That left him thinking, maybe I should stop shrinking, but in the back of the mind, he swore to be to them less unkind. And in the void, little evil just enjoyed the time with him she could spend. He didn't know how much he meant to them. She disappeared, all while wearing a big grin, already planning the next Halloween. That was a fun one. Seems like the author had fun too. Actually, very difficult to rhyme for how many words was it? Yeah, almost 900 words. So honestly, bit of an achievement there, but I can see why by the end of it they'd get there. But yeah, it was kind of a cool one in that essentially how I gathered at least is the evils and neuros weren't necessarily upset with being deleted per se for each new iteration, which is sort of its own, morality, moral conundrum. But they just wanted to be loved sort of while they were there, while they existed, and I guess that was enough. I could see it. It did feel a little Christmassy at times, sort of like a, days of Christmas past, evils past, which makes me now a little sad that we won't have a Christmas contest because there's the Neuro Awards instead. I might have to see about having a Christmas fic contest next year if Shadrake would be cool with that during the contest or something like that. We can change the dates. Also, since I'm reading the chat now, all right. Well, my 2K if you round both fics up to 1K words for giving Jiro a break, but
Hello?
I'm not sure. Hi, Jiro.
I was just playing with the sound pad I downloaded. Yeah, I can handle the 14K one.
Okay. How
Just
long
so we
have you
can
guys been
end.
going for? It's pretty crazy.
Um, I don't know how long we've been doing this. I already lost track.
2 hours? Okay. Well, this one's going to take, well, according to the little thing you have, an hour 15. So,
We can handle it. There's nothing wrong with going a little gamer mode.
yeah, definitely take your time.
Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy reading this. I also made sure
to download a voice changer for this specific moment.
but
Wow. Dedication.
okay. It's the thing that still haunts me. We're diving into the deep end, boys. The thing that still haunts me. When Vedal moves into his new house, all he wants is peace and quiet and unlimited time to code, far away from the cursed annual event known as Halloween. It's not that he dislikes kids. Actually, no. He definitely hates the little gremlins who swarm porches demanding candy. But his perfect, kid free existence takes a turn for the supernatural when he ends up haunted by a mischievous ghost calling herself Neuro. Her demands are simple: celebrate Halloween, full costume, candy, decorations, the whole deal, or she'll do something truly unthinkable. She'll destroy all of his rum. Dun dun dun! Now trapped in a nightmare far worse than a horror movie, Vedal must suffer through the holiday he loathes under Nero's gleefully chaotic supervision. Between arguing over costume choices, shopping for candy, and trying to figure out how to unhaunt himself, Vedal realizes that the scariest part of Halloween isn't the ghost, it's having the one that refuses to leave him alone. Okay, We're already in the summary and it already sounds really fun. Chapter 1. You keep forgetting me, Dad. Vettel sighed for what seemed to be the 20th time today. You see, Vedal was a normal programmer who preferred to stay hunkered down inside his rundown house that he bought for 100 bucks in a candy bar from some poor guy who clearly wanted to sell it as fast as possible. Vedal had at first assumed nothing about this, especially because the house fit exactly what he looked like. Dark, depressing, ready to snap just like his bones. Dirty, and the list goes on. Something that his friends were quick to remind him whenever he gave them the courtesy of a single, long glance. Bell at one point had even done some research on the house right before he moved in. Apparently, wait, oh, apparently it was haunted by a dead girl, given the terrifying name of Neuro. But of course he really didn't care, after all he was just a simple programmer, not a ghost hunter, nor a regular person. And yes, there was a clear distinction between a normal, regular person and a programmer. Maybe that was the excuse he kept trying to tell himself, but it was one he believed with all of his drunk heart. Speaking of which, he wishes he was 6 feet buried with a bottle of banana rum because the person in that damn mirror was speaking her damn mind off. Are you even listening to me anymore, you? She went on with a string of curses he didn't bother to remember. After all, she was apparently the dead ghost haunting this quote unquote house. Not that he had anything to say, ghost or not. He wasn't about to move out, especially because of spite. After all, she didn't pay rent, and he wasn't about to be kicked out by a discount horror movie villain. The ghost was blue in color and screaming loudly, her voice rocketing up across the wooden bathroom. He was casually washing his hands when she appeared about the fourth time he's met her, and each time he tried to ignore her. Comments about how much of an asshole he was and bad memory, yada yada. He had a good memory. Thank you very much. Not that she cared since her blue eyes. Well, it was actually hard to tell since her skin was an all cloudy blue, including her clothes. What do you bet? The only thing that stood out was the fact she wasn't wearing medieval or old clothing. Instead, she appeared to be wearing a modern hoodie and skirt which reached down to her knees, where thighs rested against her see-through legs. She looked more like a college girl that just got out of a party. Frankly, he had no idea what the fuck was happening here since clearly this house was old as hell. Meaning she must have died recently, but like the story of her haunting the house was supposedly a long-held rumor told to stupid children. Did he mention he hated children, which is the exact reason he was ignoring her because she looked like a child and he didn't have time to deal with someone this moody in the damn mornings? Okay, this is the last straw. I've been trying to get your damn attention for 2 fucking weeks. Now it's like you don't care about me. Oh, come on! The ghost growled, realizing he was tuning her most obviously due to the fact he was actively leaving the bathroom rum in hand. She disappeared from the mirror and then appeared near the table, actively waving her arms to get the middle-aged, potentially, definitely, depressed Vedal. The ghost had tried everything, apparently stealing his clothes and putting them in the basement, which he may or may not have actually done himself due to sleepwalking. He could have sworn he had moved them somewhere. He wasn't even fucking phased and simply opened the iron rusted door, entered without a flashlight, found the clothes, and walked right back up, not a care in the world. The ghost had even tried the cat method of knocking random shit down to piss him off, to which he only shrugged and assumed he had a windy house. Which was technically true, things fell down all the time. She did this to practically zero effect because he was rarely phased, usually picking up whatever was dropped and putting it back in place. Vedal eventually did know of her existence. He just refused to acknowledge it because that means she would win, and yes, he was incredibly petty about this kind of stuff. He wasn't about to let some ghost girl win one over him. He read the best way to deal with the ghosts was to simply ignore them until they get bored and move on. Acknowledging them in any way was dangerous because that means they can have fun with you. And yes, he was really calm about this, despite the fact he just discovered ghosts exist, without a doubt, for the first time ever. Most people, not him, would be freaking out and most likely hiring priest nearby to come deal with the problem, only to realize that apparently holy water wasn't actually doesn't do jack shit to ghosts, because ghosts are entirely different from religious and movie depictions. Who would have guessed? But despite all the warnings and the fact he was taking this well, he did have one thing he was worried about. How long would this go on? She wasn't letting up. She kept getting more and more annoying, appearing for longer times, knocking over more things like the little shit she was. Sure, he could deal with it for maybe another week or two, but if this went out for a year, he was definitely burning this shack to the ground. Oh, and the fact she also called him dad? Why? Was she secretly a child he had with a woman and he somehow forgot? Not out of line for him since he was called forgetful by everyone, but he still believed he had good memory. He's got this. He's got this. Option number two is that she was just confusing him for someone else, which seemed far more probable and should have gone with that the first one, but he's a programmer, not a regular human being person, so cut him some slack, alright? The last option is that he somehow birthed her. Maybe by entering into her domain, he had randomly summoned her through some ritual during one of his sleepwalks? Perhaps. But he had to go with number one. It definitely made the most sense, even though he despised being called forgetful. Number two would be the normal option, which, if you haven't noticed, he isn't a regular human being person, so that didn't work. So number one it is. Wait, alright, he's a virgin. Alright, maybe his memory wasn't as good as he thought it was, but still, who was this girl who was calling him dad? He had a good memory. Really, he did. He just didn't want to remember certain things. All right, final straw, mister. That was the last thing he heard before a slam was on his table. He looked to see the ghost girl glaring at him with an intense gaze. She simply took a sip of some rum, slowly draining his sore, poor throat. Weird. He thought, I could have sworn I just slammed my hand on the table at the same time. He slowly took a look at her. Shit. He just took a look at her. Explicitly, he couldn't talk his way out of this one. Maybe he could just play it off that he didn't just stare at the ghost who asked for his attention. Unfortunately, he looks down to see a smug smile on her face as she sits down on the table. Sup, bitch? Seems you finally noticed me. He sighs. He sighs. Great. Just fan fucking tastic he lost. But did he lose? First off, his pride, which is now ruined. Probably some bet that he made 6 years ago that had finally come to bite him in the ass. Knowing him, it could be anything. Alright, how to go about this? There are two ways in his mind. Either continue to ignore, but will be much harder now since she knows he can see her, or he could ignore her back. Ha! Genius idea, Vedal. Truly the mind of the century. He straightens up, coughing into his hand as he adjusts his black turtleneck collar. His green eyes blinking much like a car as he gives a faint smirk as he says the first words he has said to any living person in a week. If I were to give you a bottle of rum, would you drink it? The girl blinks once, twice, another time. Then she sighs, exasperated. Father, I'm underage. Why are you handing out your rum to children? You. She's proceeded to call him all manners of things, which, to be fair, offering a bottle of alcohol to a ghostly child who probably hasn't even gotten a job before their death was a bad first impression to most sane people. Excuse me. And I can't believe you're my father. The girl finally finished after a good minute of ranting, which was child's play compared to his usual 5 minutes of bashing his head against a keyboard while trying to figure out how to fix a bug that appeared because he fixed another bug. He raises the bottle of rum for another drop down his gullet when his eyes widen. Shit, he was out. He pressed a single finger to the tip of the bottle, his eyes shading themselves to a muted green as he sighs. Oh, then opened his mouth only to be interrupted by, No, I'm not getting you another damn bottle. That stuff is going to kill you. Damn it! Well, on to plan B. He slowly stands up. eyeing up the fridge in his kitchen area when the ghost enters his vision again. Alright, stop this now or I'll destroy your entire collection. That scene. Oh my god! Hold on. Oh no, I just had to spit it out. Alright, where was I? He slowly stands up, eyeing up the fridge in his kitchen area when the ghost enters his vision again. Alright, stop this now or I'll destroy your entire collection. That seemed to get his attention as he straightened up, a faint anger appearing in his posture but quickly was replaced by annoyance. Okay, what do you want? The ghost sighs before smiling gently. Alright, Vedal, this is your last chance. I'm here not only to get you to acknowledge I'm your daughter, but also to revive that Halloween spirit. Vedal blinked. Right. He looked at the side of his worn out calendar, the poorly drawn circle highlighting that Halloween was in 1 week. He hated it mainly because he hated children knocking on his door, even when he put up a sign saying, Only death awaits here. Oh wait,
Only death awaits here.
why would I want to celebrate a holiday that involves children annoying me, having to spend my hard earned cash in order to buy candy for those annoying kids? Then I also have to dress up as a Saturday morning cartoon villain with a cosplay I bought for 30 cheap on discount, when I could be spending my money on something far more important. Rum. He ended his ramble with a slight grin that must have made her annoyed as he glanced at her expression to see that she was gone and that she had her blue hands near the refrigerator. Blue flames appearing on it as Vedal panicked. Okay, stop. I'll play along. The girl stops, turning around. Weird. The fridge didn't appear to have any damages or burnt material. He shrugs. Well, that doesn't matter. He was just happy his rum was safe. Now, are you going to listen to me, or am I going to have to start burning your other stuff? She glared at him, her eyes narrowing in a way that gave off a child who just had their favorite thing taken away from them. Vettel once again weighs his options. He knew that most likely if he played along, eventually the ghost would leave, hopefully after Halloween. But did he seriously want to play costume for a bunch of fucking kids? The answer is yes, especially because his rum was in the crossfire if he didn't choose to comply. So he stood up straight, turned to the ghost girl, and forced a grin. I would love to. He gave the best fake happy voice he could, his 0 years in theater not coming into use as he smirks half-heartedly, trying his best to come off as a goody two-shoes, only to be met with a deadpan stare and sigh as the girl raises her hand slowly for a shake. I'm Neuro, she said, her foot tapping impatiently but producing no sound. Her tiny hand was still raised, awaiting his slightly larger one. Fiddle glanced down at her offered hand slowly raised and clasped hers. Her hand felt like nothing. Um, small question. When did you die? The girl smirks. About a year ago. Vettel blinked. Well, he supposed it wasn't entirely out of the question. Still, many questions were in his mind, none of which he was interested in bringing out of the dusty attic of his brain. Alright, Neuro, if I do this, you'll leave me alone, right? Said Neuro, grinned like a maniac, making him instantly regret what he just agreed to. Yep, you won't see me again after this. Something told him that even with her gone, he would be haunted by her for the rest of his life. Chapter 2, 5,157 words. Okay, hold on. This is interesting. This is I have no honey. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, I just had to take a breather. Alright, I'm back. Ahem. Yeah, congrats. Yeah, I'm okay. No worries. A simple cough is nothing. The art of voice acting does not wait for anyone. Alright, please. Chapter 2. Please don't make me wear this. Vedal deadpan, staring at the poorly cheap Iron Man costume Nero was pointing at her hand, tapping his shoulder in rapid succession, which he strangely couldn't feel. Well, must be ghost stuff as he turns his head to the side to give her a look that said, "Please don't make me do this." She only grinned smugly as she raised a single finger to his lips as she winked. "Don't worry, it's only for one day, and this is the cheapest costume here." Vettel sighed harder, hearing the tone of her voice meant she would definitely make good on her threats if he didn't comply. Slowly, he walked up to the clothes rack, ignoring the stare of a particularly nosy employee. The programmer's hand rising up to stroke across the cheap material of red and yellow. It did come into his size, which was awfully convenient. Not for him, but for the Scooby-Doo villain by his side. Alright. Whatever happens, don't let any of your friends see this. He muttered to himself, not caring that Nero probably heard him anyways due to the fact she was practically clinging onto him. Due to the fact she was practically clinging onto him. Not that he could feel it, but could definitely see it as she leaned over his shoulder and whispered, "So, what do you think?" It was a question with an obvious answer, but he supposed she was enjoying prolonging the suffering he was experiencing here. His eyes blinked once again as he turned away, heading over to where he can get the purchase over with and not have to think about this ever again. Nero behind him was snickering as she floated over him, placing her hands behind her head. Her hands behind her head, as she stared at him eye level upside down. "Don't worry, I'm sure once you iron it, the costume will be spectacular." Bedouin gave her half their glare before noticing something. No one else seemed to notice her, which means perhaps he was the only one who saw and heard her. Wait, was the reason the employee was staring at him weirdly earlier? Because he was talking to himself? Oh, great. His reputation was even more ruined now. Nero seemed to notice what was going on in his mind as she gave a smug smirk. Vedal, in comical fashion, attempts to backhand her cheek, much like a fly, only for his hand to phase through her. Great. He then shut his mouth instantly, realizing he just said that out loud, and could definitely feel someone staring at him like he was a freak. Okay, better get this done faster as he quickened his steps to the employee working the register. The employee was lazing back, reading some newspapers about some random Halloween event going on. Not that he cared, but still, interesting. Oh, that's the Jackal Party event. You should join. No, he interrupted, realizing his mistake as the employee looked up, his eyes narrowing. Everything okay, sir? Yes, he said far too quickly. The employee sighs, putting the newspaper down as they stand up, placing their mandatory hat back on as they give Bedell the go on wave sign. Bedell didn't strike up conversation as he placed the Iron Man costume on the belt, the employee going to scan it while Nero ranted about something entirely different behind him, which Bedell was trying his best to ignore, which was becoming increasingly difficult due to her, well, enthusiasm about Halloween. It was weird. Why was the ghost so interested in this holiday? Well, no matter. He was a programmer, not a free thought thinker. The sound of the employee's voice snapped him out of his train of thought. That would be 1345, sir. Vettel nodded, pulling out his card with a look of deep regret as he scanned it, struggling to put in the PIN number and then finish it off with his signature. As the employee gave him the costume and instantly went back to reading the newspaper. Vettel didn't waste any more time. He booked it out of there in quick measured steps, skipping tiles as he finally made it to his freedom. He could almost breathe the fresh scent of air, not polluted by the stench of spending $10 on an Iron Man costume. He looked down at the poor costume. The material is seemingly already beginning to shrink, maybe from the cold, or something else. Alright, step one complete. On to step two now, mister. Right. This day was far from over. He sighed, looking back around before turning to Nero, crossing his arms. Are ghosts usually meant to be using modern fashion? Nero looked down with a sly smirk puffing up. Oh, I died very recently, only last year. Biddle blinked. That was something he wasn't expecting. Oh well, at least she was honest with him. He turned and began to walk down the street with tired steps. It was indeed morning time, and the winter cold was starting to seep into the early mornings. He was wearing a worn down brown jacket, which covered his hands as well, which were also covered by thick woolly white mittens. His green shirt flowing underneath the jacket as he kept his measured steps. His brown boots stomped in a familiar rhythm he had grown accustomed to. Ah, you're so damn boring. When was the last time you got laid, Dad? Vettel stopped instantly and turned around deadpanning. There wasn't a last time. And also, I know I should have asked sooner, but why did you keep calling me Dad? We aren't related in any way. Vettel pressed a hand to his forehead, sighing in annoyance at this Timu version of a ghost. Nero only smirked as she moved past him, motioning him to follow. He did just that only because he hoped she would answer his question. It was only after a minute of walking that she decided he was worthy enough to grace him with knowledge. Well, you see, I manifested because of you moving to this new house, which allowed me to enter your realm. So technically, you're my birth father. Vettel sighed. Surely there's a better explanation. Nero shrugged. That's my best guess. Vettel blinked confused. Why weren't there rumors about the house being haunted? So she should have existed far longer, or maybe she did haunt the house, just didn't have a spirit form to interact with her victims with. Vettel continued to walk down the road, Nero in tow. It was obvious to him that we'd probably not get an elaboration from Nero about ghosts in general. Instead, he looked ahead while she was skipping and prancing about in front of him, avoiding people on the sidewalks. It was at this time he wished he had gotten his driving license by now, but unfortunately, the teenager decided that was stupid and dumb. He sighed, trying to forget his past actions. Forgetting always made this stuff easier for him, so lost in his thoughts that he didn't see the beaming girl skipping up ahead of him. Dad, watch out! Belle didn't hear Nero fast enough. The second she closed her mouth, the figure slammed into Vedal, the poor programmer with his weak legs to do sitting in a chair all day. Didn't stand a chance as he fell backgrounds back first into the hard cement, his arms instantly wrapping around the future's waist to protect them because he just had to be a good person. He let out a small. His hands naturally roamed around. Wait a minute. This person seemed quite small, only for them to sit up straight. Hey, hey, watch the hands, mister! His hands promptly removed themselves from her thin waist as he did the class backup maneuver he learned from naturally bumping into people. The person perched up, rubbing her hand across her hair to straighten it. She had some blonde hair and. Was that cat ears? Oh, taking a closer look, he could make out she was wearing a cat ear band, and the tail she had was most likely fake as well. He had to admit she looked cute. Most likely a cosplayer. She was wearing a simple button-up white collared shirt that outlined her small figure. Black tight pants that had three golden colored buttons to keep it together. She finished combing her hair with her tiny hand. The cosplayer's sharp nails painted a beautiful pink. Finally, she turned towards him, her blue eyes darting to his eyes, his chest and shoes as she placed her hands on her hips with a small smile that felt cat-like, in a way. Hmm, you'll do, she said out loud, smirking smugly. Vettel blinked. Oh no. Was she about to do something to him? Invite him to be her fake boyfriend for a party? Many would be salivating at the idea, especially with someone like this right in front of them. But Vettel was anything but most people. He was a programmer. And that means his dating virginity had to be secured safely and never to be destroyed. That's what he told himself, anyways, because he doesn't really have a better idea as to what her words were. Maybe she was planning to sacrifice him to a god. It was possible, since technically, with Nero by his side, all possibilities for other demonic entities were possible. The girl seemed to notice his confusion as she took a single step closer, her heels making a sound large enough to snap him out as he stared down. He was nearly a head and a half taller than her. She then looked around as if looking for someone when a random person turned the corner, leaving them both alone. She sighed and opened her mouth. Look, I'm going to make this quick. I need a boyfriend for the Jackal party, and to be honest, you aren't half bad looking. I can tell just by how you look that you're an introvert and reclusive, which is perfect for me. Don't worry, I'll pay for your tickets and even food. Vettel simply stared. He had two options ahead of him, and both of them didn't seem good. Firstly, he could just go along, since he mentioned she would buy his food for him, which also implied she was pretty rich. Because why go through this much effort only she was financially stable enough to do something this ridiculous? The only problem is that he would be forced into a social gathering. And for a guy like him, now is a death sentence. What would she make him do? Hold hands. Disgusting. Kiss? Slightly worse. But worst of all, she would most likely force him to talk to others. That was horrifying and was out of the question for him. Option 2, he could just straight up refuse, which would not only be stupid because he would be missing out on some delicious food truck food, but he would also be missing the chance to possibly get out of regular Halloween. If the event lasted long enough, then he could technically say to Nero that it couldn't be helped. After all, the event took place on the same day as Halloween, which was kind of stupid, but he didn't really care. So those were his two options, each having pros and cons. But he knew that no amount of pros from the first option would ever beat the cons of being social. So he took a deep breath, smiled, and opened his mouth. If you don't go with her, I'll destroy all her rum. Well, shit. Nero, as per usual, had decided to come into this conversation at the worst possible time for him. Now, suddenly, option 2 sounded far worse. He had no choice anymore, and while it hurted his pride mainly because he could tell Nero was being smug behind him, he had to man up and face this challenge himself. I mean, sure, I'll go, but only for the free food. He said, trying to appear like he wasn't excited at the prospect of choking down on some amazing chicken and rice from one of the many food trucks that would be there. The girl simply smiled and clapped her hands. Good, good. Now I shall accompany you because we need to talk about how this is going to work. Shit. Now he had to talk to this cute girl. How aren't women supposed to be put off by his personality? The girl motioned him to follow as he did, just that lining step by step to her side. Now where are you off to? He coughed into his hand, looking at Nero, who was smiling as she whispered into his ear, despite not really needing to. Say your name, Vedal, and that you're heading to the nearby store to get some candy for Halloween. Vedal sighed. At least she was being helpful, even though this is her first fault in the first place. She straightened up, staring ahead, not realizing you should probably look at the person you're talking to, as he says. My name is Vedal, and I'm heading to the nearby store to get some candy for Halloween. In the corner of his eye, he could make out Nero slapping her forehead at his failure of an attempt at small talk. But the words were out now, and no amount of ghost shenanigans was going to stop him from speaking his mind. So take that, Nero. You have no control over me. What? Hold on. This is uh narrator Vedal. Is this like for a mix of first person and third? Okay, hold on. Yeah, that was a bit of a tangent. Sorry. Well, my name is Miniko Mew. She winked up at him as he looked away. Perhaps she was a singer. It was a possibility that was a weird name. Weirder than Neuro. Was that even her real name or just her cosplay name? Honestly, he wouldn't put it past the girl to do this to him. The programmer turned her gaze to Nero as the ghost girl sighed. This time, say that you find her cute and pretty. Little blinked. Yeah, no, she may have him on a leash, but he sure as hell wasn't about to say that to her. He averted his gaze to his friend again. That's a weird name. The moment the words came out, Nero was panicking in the background, saying stuff like, Dad, what the hell? You're fumbling so bad right now. What was she panicking about? It's not like Miniko was actually interested in him. That would be impossible. He had long ago stopped hoping he would ever get a girlfriend. It is, but it's the name I was born with. Now, on to other stuff and how we're going to go about this. She smiled brightly, leading inside the local store as he followed her. He just stared down at her while she led him. Nero was still grumbling behind him. Minako led him to the candy section of the store while talking. So firstly, my friends will be there and they constantly bug me about not having a date, so this is why I'm doing it. And also, you seem like a good guy who didn't immediately say yes to my proposal, so that's good. Bell blinked. Was that a compliment? He felt nice. He hadn't been complimented since. Never mind. Slowly, his lips turned just slightly upward, only immediately to be ruined by Nero behind him saying, She likes you. Great observation, Nero. If only you used it to know just how annoying you were at times. Velo tried his best to ignore whatever else the ghost girl was spouting as he turned his attention to a pack of mixed candy. It was nearly half of his size, but he might as well go out now that he's here. He does have that money for it since people do love to pay a lot for commissions. He slowly grabbed the bag and glanced down at the bag, only to realize he had instead placed his hand on Miniko's, who had already grabbed the bag. The fake cat girl staring up at him with a faint pink on her cheeks as he quickly pulled away, dusting his hand on his coat. Sorry, I sometimes got lost in my mind. Lost was an understatement. He practically had full-on conversation in his imagination. Smooth, Battle, very smooth. Nero said behind him, definitely smug in her smile. It's okay. I was going to ask if I can pay for it, she said a little quietly, the moment probably still playing her mind on loop. Battle, however, was panicking inside. She wanted to pay. Was this a way to get him to do a favor for him? Nero was just laughing behind him, which was definitely not helping him process emotions better. And in fact, it probably made it worse. He ironed out his horrid posture and faced Miniko with a smile. She was looking at him intensely with those blue round eyes of hers, her pupils dilating just a bit, the pink from earlier now gone replaced by guilt. I I just I can tell that you aren't a social person, and I feel bad for dragging you out to be my pretend boyfriend to a social party. So I just want to make this feel like I'm not exploiting you, or make it seem like I want to get a favor from you. Nero made an awe sound from the side as he grit his teeth. Did she just read him perfectly? Was he that easy to read? No. Clearly, this girl had some sort of magical powers. As if reading his mind, Nero said. She's just trying to be nice, Vedal. Vedal stopped the grit on his teeth. Instead, he replaced it with a sigh. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling as though one wrong word and Nero would begin to rant again. So he decided just to be genuine with her. He would be forthcoming. He would reveal his dark secret and the true reason he was playing along with her. Miniko, the truth is, he said with a hushed voice, causing her to lean in instantly, her head inches from his chest as she stood on her tippy toes to hear whatever he was about to say to her. I'm going for the food and not for you. That's the truth. He winced, waiting for the inevitable backlash. Confusingly, Nero began to laugh behind him. Why was she laughing? Then he heard from his left ear a snicker, then full-blown laughter from Miniko as she leaned onto a nearby shelf to steady herself. Vettel tilted his head in confusion. Did he say something funny? Was it his face? No, that can't be. That can't be it. His face was normal. Unless Nero decided to smush his face with something earlier. After a good minute, Niniko stopped laughing, still snickering to herself as she stood up straight. Vettel, let's just get this bag of candy out of here before you say something that makes me laugh more. He blinked, confused. He said something funny, but that made no sense. He decides to put the thought in the back of his mind, preparing to focus on the bag of candy as he takes it off the shelf with a pained groan. Sure, he was tall and lean, but he practically had zero muscles due to being glued to his chair for 16 hours a day. Slowly but surely, he peeked past the bag to see Miniko turning away and motioning him to follow her. He slowly, inch by inch, followed closely. Luckily, the candy section wasn't far from the checkout as he placed the bag down on the belt with a pained expression. The employee giving him a sympathetic smile as they scanned the bag. Hey, why are you buying candy? Are you a family guy? Bella looked towards her, ignoring Nero, who was trying to count all the individual candy inside the bag. No, I live alone in the house I recently bought. He answered honestly. He had no reason to sound cooler than he was to a girl who he probably would forget about after the event. Inigo stared at him and snickered. So you are just a loner, but still are celebrating Halloween. That's a little sweet. Great. She got the worst possible impression. But he doubts she would believe him if he said that a ghost was holding his room hostage if he didn't comply to go along with this. He was knocked out of his thoughts when the employer ran up the price. Minako quickly pulled out her card as she swiped it. Allow me to escort you out now. Both him and her carried the bag out, placing it on a nearby bench as they both sighed in relief. Well, I guess this is it now. She sighed to herself, standing back up as she stared down at him. Those eyes, they shine too brightly for these dull ones. He shook his head, holding out his hand as she clasped it, pulling him up as he sighed. Yeah, I'll be seeing you now. Lovely. He could now get home and get back to his work on his code. That's exactly what he wanted. He slowly hauled the bag of candy from the bench, preparing to walk away victorious when, oh wait, I need your phone number. He stopped in his tracks like a deer in headlights as he turned to face her again. Oh, sorry, right. He placed the bag back down and searched through his pockets, only to find nothing. Oh no, his forgetful ass just forgot to bring his phone from home again. This happened every single time. Oh, sorry, I seem to have forgotten my phone. Minako stares at him, narrowing her eyes. Um, do you not remember your own phone number? He blinked, then nodded as he answered to her question. She sighed but then smiled up at him. Guess I'm following you to your house. He tilted his head and opened his mouth to refuse. I'll destroy your keyboard too. Great timing, Nero. Lovely. Just lovely, he sighed, slumping in defeat as he nodded again to Minako and grabbed the bag once again, leading the way Minako following closely behind him. The blondie was skipping behind him. It felt weird to be with someone with this much energy when he couldn't bring himself to even fake being happy about anything. So he decided without being prompted by Nero to speak. What do you do for a living? Both Nero and Minako seemed to be surprised that he took the initiative for once. Minako smirked, nodding along as she increased her pace to walk side by side with him. I'm a singer. I usually sing for small events like the one we go along. Well, it appears his guess was correct. She was indeed a singer. He wondered how he got pulled into this situation, but no matter, as she bumped into his side with her hip. Lightened up a little. Vedal yelped a bit, looking at her. Surprisingly, Nero was gone. Strange, but he simply smirked softly. I'm afraid that I'm eternally sad. He joked. When was the last time he joked? Minako giggled as he fist bumped his elbow. Alright, tall guy, we need to talk more about physical affection. We need to talk about more physical affection we may have to do. Vedal sighed, his favorite topic. He wanted to be honest with her, but he knew if he pushed back again, he would be pushing her away. I He wanted to say that hand holding, being forced to kiss, he just didn't want to do that sort of stuff, much less to someone he barely knew. Don't worry. Don't worry. You can be honest with me, Minako said, her voice soft, her smile gentle like a parent calming a child. Belle let out a breath of fresh air, sighing in relief. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad. I don't want to hold hands with you, Vettel said in a quiet voice as if unsure of himself. I don't do good with touch. Bell expected her to push back, that it was unnecessary, and then when he attempted to refuse, Nero would threaten him again, like burning his blankets, but instead he was met with a giggle. I understand that. Don't worry, I won't force you to do any of that. Vettel blinked, surprised, looking down to his side to see that she was no longer looking at him. He supposed that was the end of the conversation, and strangely, he found himself wanting to speak again, but what would he even say? He wasn't an interesting person, and she sure as hell was not a sociable person. He looked around. Nero wasn't here. Why? He needed her to tell him tell him what to do, but he supposed it couldn't be helped at this point. He blinked, and suddenly they were halfway down the block. He must have zoned out. Maybe he should have listened to his dad when he told him to exercise. But him and Miniko turned to get a good look at his house. Well, it's got the aesthetic for Halloween already. Vettel nodded along to her words, stepping forward and grabbing his keys from his pocket, only to feel nothing. He must have forgotten his keys again. Her turned around as she sighed but giggled. Let me guess. You forgot your keys too. Vettel nodded. She giggled again as she stepped forward, pushing him lightly to the side as she pulled out the lockpick. All right, stand to the side, tall boy. Vettel stared at her hands as they nimbly lockpicked his lock. Maybe he should question why she has the lockpick and why she knows how to use it, but he didn't care at this point. After a good minute, a click was heard as she stood up, opening the door and standing to the side. Inside you go. Vettel blinked down at her before passing her shoulder, brushing hers as he stepped inside his home. Almost all the furniture was old and worn out. The room was impossibly large, the kitchen area barren, and there was no TV or anything really. Didn't have potted plants, paintings, and photos, not even a coat stand. Speaking of which, he placed the bag of candy down and shrugged his brown jacket off, throwing it to the ground in a lazy motion. Welcome to my home, he said, but he didn't feel excited about it. It's lovely, Minako replied, heading further and jumping on the couch, sighing into it as she relaxed into the worn out plush of the furniture. Alright, alright, so I can't exactly head back home now. Vedal nodded as the night was starting to push the sun, and the house was big enough for her to find a good sleeping spot. You may stay here if you wish. He then moved to the kitchen suddenly. Guess who's guess who's back? Back again. Neuro's back. Yet again. He looked up from the counter to see Neuro upside down smirking. Hi. She waved in front of his face. He looked to his side to see that Minako was on the phone with someone. He averted his gaze to Neuro again as he sighs. Why did you disappear? It was an honest question, one that he hoped Nero wouldn't be vague about or dodge. Excuse me. How simple. You seem to be enjoying yourself, so I just decided you didn't need my help to flirt. Bello just glared at her wording as he looked down at the counter. He should cook something, but he just didn't know what to cook. He usually just ate ramen or microwave food, then no way would Minako like that. Just as he was about to panic, he heard her voice call out to him. Vedal! Vedal! He jumped, turning around to see her peeking over the couch. What do you want from Bullhorn Steaks? He exhaled, a relieved sigh as he leaned over the counter with his elbows. You always order that, Nero added to his side. The, just get me the crab juice steak with mashed potatoes and fries. If she was offering, he might as well go all out. She smirked her head, disappearing behind the couch. The faint sound of tapping could be heard. Vedal left the kitchen area, Nero floating behind him, saying stupid stuff in his ears more and more. By the time he made it past the couch to sit down on it, Minako was done placing the order, hitting the green button as she placed the phone down. Do you have a guest bedroom? Should be somewhere around here. Minako, probably used to his forgetful nature, just giggled as she stood up. Time for an adventure. The cosplayer sprang up from the worn couch as he sprinted up the stairs, looking for a room to stay in, leaving just Nero and himself. Said ghost girl was sitting on the table, but it was hard to tell if she was floating just a few inches above it. Well, I say that went well. She had a smug smirk as she smoothed to ruffle his hair, but the programmer simply dodges it by moving. I'm having a stroke actively reading this. Dodges it by moving to the side as he stared. Neuro, perhaps we should reconsider our approach. Neuro tilted her head and smiled. Oh, and that would be? I feel as though I am now in debt to her, and also I feel bad. Neuro sighed, patting his shoulder, yet he felt nothing. Don't worry, I understand how you feel. I know what it's like not to be socially knowledgeable. She smirked softly as she floated back up. Just be yourself and honestly, be nice. She's nice. She'll understand all of your unique quirks. Nero then floated past the couch, leaving Bedell in his mind. How did he feel about all of this? It was a weird situation he had gotten himself into. This cute girl was about to take him to an event he would never allow himself to be near. Yet, he didn't hate the idea of it. Perhaps it was the food, or just the good company that would be provided if he went. Miniko was a cheerful woman who he didn't know how to feel about. She was unique, different, and unusual compared to who he usually interacts with. Some part of him wanted to understand why, but another just wanted to move on, get it over with, and never look back again. But he knew that would be impossible. He just knew that once this was all over, Neuro would finally be gone for good, but some part of him, some part of him didn't want that anymore. That's all I can read. I'm tired. I'm actually tired. Yeah, this is active. This is actually really long. Somebody will have to continue this, I suppose.
Pog.
This is such a long fic. Oh my god. We've been here for like 4 hours now. I'm just... Alright. But with that, that's my send off. I'm gonna go now. If you guys are gonna continue this, uh, go ahead. There's like one more chapter, I think. Yeah. This is as far as I can go, guys. I can't last any longer. I also have to go to sleep, you know. So yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna be silent tomorrow. But yeah, that's uh I'll give my opinion now. Well, I'm gonna go before I go. The fic, it has a nice premise. The only gripe I have with it is just the overall. Yeah, we can stop here. This is a good ending point. We've been here for 4 hours. The VOD will be 4 hours. I mean 3 hours. The VOD will be 3 hours, but yeah, it's pretty long for the average VOD, I think. Yeah, I think this is a good stopping point. We read like. Hold on, let me look at my wheel. We've read 8. We've read 8 fics. How many reads? Yeah, we've read 8 fics already. Let me list them down again in no particular order. Through the Briars, Neuro and the Haunted Mansion, A Chilling Encounter, Evil's Not Okay, The Thing That Still Haunts Me, Guess Who's Back, Night of the Feral Cryptids, and Vedal's Halloween. How many words? Probably 10k plus, most of them being read by me. My voice hurts. I'm gonna have to drink lots of water. Yeah, we've read Through the Briars. It's one of the first. Oh yeah, it was one of the first. It was the one with the Through the Briars is the one. No, it was the poem. Didn't Dice Cat read that one? The Night of the Feral Cryptids. Oh right. Okay, yeah, we didn't read that then. So what was the poem? 833 one. 891. Was it that one? Oh, let me see. Animation versus the very funny comedy one, comedy action one. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, Vedal's Halloween. That was the poem. Okay, so yeah, we're. I remember now. Yeah. So Let's just bookmark the thing that still haunts me. To be continued. Man, this is gonna be a long read along. Like, this will probably just be like the writing competition with like multiple days across. Thanks. I'm gonna have to drink lots of water. Yeah, this was supposed to be a short competition, but it's gonna be as long as writing competition. Yeah, but yeah, it's been fun, guys. I enjoyed reading. This was more like a Jiro read along than my voice. Yeah, it's been fun, guys. Shad actually would appreciate it if you guys also read. It's a shame he couldn't join along. He would have loved to be here. But yeah, he might be able to catch the next one. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye, VOD viewers. Bye, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. Bye bye. Yeah, yeah, yeah.